Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Triggered for the final episode of this version of the show. Today we have
Root
Layman.
interruption, root interruption.
Today we have a cunt with us, and we will have more cunts joining us later. And we're going to be primarily talking about Islam in Europe, for the most part, but it'll probably fall into degeneracy at some point. So before we begin, we have our first guest, Dr. Layman. Why don't you introduce yourself real quick?
Hi there, I'm Dr. Layman. I do YouTube videos and I'm involved in quite a bit of social research, and radicalization and this entire Islam issue is somewhat of a niche that I'm very active in.
A niche that is part of your habitat. So I'm actually just looking at terrorist attacks in Germany specifically, and something interesting is that there's a large gap between all the attacks that have happened recently and the attacks that were happening in the past. So there was an attack in Frankfurt in 2011. Then there's a 4-year gap, but even before that, there's like a almost 20-year gap. The last attack before that was in Frankfurt in '96, and there's 4 attacks from this year in February, May, July. 2 in July. Is that right?
I don't know. I don't have the most recent data, but it should be 2, depending on how you classify the one shooting.
Yeah, I'm looking at one in September in Berlin, one in Hanover in February, one in Grafing in May, one in I don't know how to say Wurzburg in July, and one in Ansbach in July. So that's knife attack, stabbing attack, axe attack, suicide bombing, knife attack. Just so why don't you run us through real quick? How did it get this bad? When did it start getting this bad? And why is Germany, and it seems like Germany and France in particular, are leading the charge in being as bad as they possibly can?
That's a very long and very complicated issue, I think. You have to keep in mind that what we're seeing right now is not unprecedented, right? This is not something that has never existed before. If you look throughout European history and even throughout German history, you will notice that we did have extensive periods of extreme terrorist activity. Okay. I think one of the most infamous examples is the Rote Armee-Fraktion, the RAF, that was responsible for bombings throughout Germany and for really fucking violent and very effective terrorist attacks. So this is not unprecedented. I think that's very important to get out before talking about it. But the question, how did it get so bad? I think there are 2 main factors involved in all of this. First, an increase in hostility between Western values and Islamic values, essentially, where people are increasingly more desperate and willing to sacrifice their own lives to hurt the Western enemy, and also a, sadly, increasing prevalence of Islam in the German society at large. What that means is not only are there more Muslims, but they are also more radical than they used to be. If you look at any kind of visual table of terrorist attacks, you will notice that up until, and don't nail me on, I think 1990-something, we did not have a single Islamic terrorist attack on German ground.
Right.
And then there's a short gap, and suddenly, boom. Here we fucking go. It's Islam time. And even if you look at the most recent terrorist attacks in Germany, you will find that in the last 6 years, I think, in the last 6 years, every terrorist attack committed in Germany was an Islamic terrorist attack.
So yeah, there's been no like self-radicalized Timothy McVeighs in Germany, right?
Come again, the last part?
Okay, so I don't know if you're familiar with a guy from an American terrorist, a guy named Timothy McVeigh, who blew up the Oklahoma building, and he's often championed as he's often given as an example of a as a self-radicalized civilian terrorist because he hated the government. So there's been none of that, right?
I think this idea of a self-radicalized terrorist is fundamentally missing the point of any kind of social reality, essentially. This idea that you are completely separate from everything that's going on around you, and you suddenly have this vague notion of, you know what, let's fucking kill people. I don't really think that's any kind of...
Well, okay, tell me if you think this makes sense. It seems to me that a lot of these Muslims that are doing this are not exactly, they don't start off as radical Muslims. A lot of them were, in the words of Islam, they would be like, infidels. They drank, they smoked, they did all the shit that the Islam forbid. And it seems like they might have realized, like, oh, I have to dedicate myself to Islam. I've been a sinner, so I should go and for Allah I should kill these infidels. Is that part of it? Are they
Yes.
feeling like they're not good enough Muslims?
I can't believe you started without me, my dudes.
Consider me little, my dude.
Literally die, my dudes.
Dude, stop stealing my memes. Also, give me the YouTube link so I can shill it right now.
All right, one sec. But yeah, here, I'll send you that.
Yeah, right,
link. Answer that question.
We don't really know if that is a part of the European phenomenon where people have feelings of inadequacy. It could be. It would certainly make a lot of sense, but we don't have data on that for now. What we do have data on is essentially the. You said that they were essentially considered infidels in the Islamic community, and I think that's really kind of hitting the nail on the head. If you look through Germany, you have a few very secluded, very highly Islamicized communities that are really densely connected and interwoven with each other. And you can be part of the community without being a radical Muslim. You can be just a Muslim, you know. And maybe your uncle is an imam, and your father is a radical Muslim, and your brother is fighting for the Islamic State. But you personally, you know, you aren't really a radical Muslim. But you already live in a community that compared to the rest of Germany is essentially radicalized already. You already have acceptance of violence and acceptance of crime and acceptance of oppression of women and acceptance of martyrdom, and you know, all of those things are essentially already accepted. You tolerate those things already.
Right.
And then it's only a very small step. Sorry, actually, just let me finish this. And then it's a very small step from being, oh, you know, this seems fine, and everyone around me is doing it, so, you know, why not? This seems like the right way to go.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, these things all sort of go hand in hand, and you don't really. It's not the kind of thing where it's like, oh, well, I just like this little bit of it or that little bit of it. It's more of a framework.
Yeah, it seems to me that in particular you have, because I mean, Islam, unlike Christianity, like they've managed to adapt to the Western values. You know, you look at Christianity the way it was, just say 150, 200 years ago, and they still had that hold, but they sort of, like, I mean, you know, in a lot of Western countries, you still get people saying things like, oh, like, you know, oh my God, and they'll still invoke God sometimes, even in court, but they don't really they don't use it as a all-encompassing moral guideline. Even if they think they should, they don't consistently apply it. And they've managed to secularize themselves for the most part, but Islam refuses to do that for the most part.
Yeah,
And even then we have to be a bit more concise, because while we don't have any overarching and very obvious influence of religion on our daily lives, Christianity still had a very, very big impact on a lot of European policymaking throughout history. So even this idea of charity, of the welfare state, is essentially rooted in Christian theology.
Well, I'm not even Christian, but you could. It's pretty much inarguable that it was Christian values. I mean, whether or not you know the whole United States was founded on Christian values and stuff like that, whether or not that's true, the values that were the Christians developed into the secular values that we now call the Western values.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Just fact.
Absolutely. I mean, secularism came from Christian thinkers who ultimately decided that, hey, you know, maybe religion shouldn't dictate the way our society is run. Maybe we shouldn't have a religious government and religious magistrate and all these things. And even I think it was Richard Dawkins himself who has said that Christianity was a bulwark against Islam. And now that Western governments are so secular, it's like secularism has been great for the quality of life of people within Western countries, but when it comes to recognizing external threats, secularism is shit at that.
Yeah.
It's like people don't understand the existential threat that Islam poses.
Well, because secularism is sort of, whether or not it should be, it seems to be inextricably tied with peace, and people seem to think that you can't have a secular nation while also being, you know, things like an isolationist or a nationalist or being actually defending of your territory or your borders and stuff like that.
Right, exactly.
Can I just 2 points that I would like to make before I forget about them? First thing, I think we need to be very precise in this debate. First thing, yes, Edgy, you're definitely right. Almost every state theory thinker throughout European history used to be Christian, definitely. But whether or not we can actually establish a causality between them being Christian and applying secular values, I don't know. Like, that would require more research. Definitely, they were Christian. They managed to get to secularism, so at least we see that it's possible. But whether or not there's a causality, I don't know. And the second thing is, I don't know which one of you said, but Christianity was a bulwark against Islam.
Yeah, yes, that was me. I was quoting Richard Dawkins.
Again, absolutely right, but again, we need to be a bit more precise here, because any kind of, let's say, I don't want to say monolithic, but something that really entangled society with it, and that essentially disallows opinions that go strictly against it, anything like that can potentially be a bulwark against something else. So, for instance, if Europe was a radical Hindu nation, or sorry, not radical Hindu, just a Hindu nation, or a very, if it was a centralized empire, Europe, with centralized administration and something like that, that already could have worked as a bulwark against Islam. I'm just trying to, put this into perspective, because Christianity.
What is it about?
Right. I mean, here's the thing: is like, yeah, I agree with you, Layman. I see what you're saying, but the problem I see in Europe is that, and particularly in Germany, most of all Germany, is that the sense of national pride, the idea of having national pride, like pride in your heritage or your culture or what it means to be a citizen of a particular nation, it's gone basically. It doesn't exist in Germany. Like, there's no patriotism there. There's no pride there's no identity of being German. There's no, like, I was talking to Crowd about that I don't know if you saw it, Layman, but that half-hour-long video I just did about the migration crisis and all the stuff that's going on. I was talking to Crowd about it, and I was telling him, like, your country needs people like you. Your country needs people who see what is happening and see that, you're basically being asked to forget that you're German and forget that you have any kind of identity. And I asked him what he thought of that, and the way he responded to it was so striking to me. It was just so telling the way he worded this. But he said, "I think you should go for it," addressing me. It's like he said he liked the script, he liked the video, like he understands what I'm saying, he appreciates what I'm saying, but at the same time, it's like he wants to say it himself and he doesn't know how, because it's almost like that has been it's almost like it's been programmed out of him to be proud of being German, to be proud of his country.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Sorry, Layman, what's that?
Did you talk to him, or did you write with him?
Sorry?
Whether or not you did have a talk on that topic with him, or whether or not you did write with him.
Like a text chat.
Yeah, text chat.
Oh yeah, exactly. Right. It was text. Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is, and I fucking love Crowd. I really, he's a buddy of mine. But when it comes to text messages, I think
he's not great at
autistic. Yeah. He's really not good at that. So I think, honestly, it might have been that he didn't really read what you were saying. Just went,
it's weird. It's weird because he speaks very good English. He's a very good speaker. But I think that there may have been, you might be right, there may have been some kind of disconnect between what I was saying and what he was reading.
Because regarding this issue, there is a gap in German identity, but it's not the type of gap you would expect to be there. Germany, for instance, has a somewhat ridiculously militant democracy, and this democratic identity is so deeply engraved into German culture and German society at large that you even have children, small school children, arguing that something was not democratic. For instance, a teacher decides something, and you will have school children telling them, "Oh well, that was not a democratic decision, so that's not all right." But also, and here's where the gap really comes in: German culture, German folklore, especially. Kind of died out. I don't know where it died out, but it suddenly died out. Most children nowadays don't know a single fairy tale, for instance. which is a
Is
shame.
a big part of this like going back to German guilt?
Good question. Probably, but the problem with the German guild aspect is that consciously, I think 2012 was a good year to demonstrate that there was a poll throughout Germany regarding young people, whether or not they still felt a certain degree of guilt, or whether or not they still associated and took responsibility for the Second World War. And the overwhelming majority, I think it was 80% of all German young people, said that, no, what the fuck, we don't have anything to do with that.
Right.
So I think that it's really that a few very young generations after the Second World War established German guild, and maybe, I don't know, but maybe try to snuff out old German culture, and the new generations, while not having German guild, basically just jumped on the bandwagon and, oh, this is how it's always been. We never had fairy tales, we never had mythology, we never had folklore.
See, this is something, and I've talked about this to Will, I think, before, and I don't remember who. I'm sure I'm stealing this from somebody, so somebody catch me if they can. But I'm a nationalist and I'm a multiculturalist, and what I mean by that is that your country should be able to incorporate other elements of culture, and you don't have to have enclaves of culture to have different cultures within a larger culture that follows a set of cultural values. You don't have to, like, I mean, you look at California, and you have, or like LA, and you have Chinatown, and you have your Latino area. You have all your little areas, but they're not complete enclaves. They still interact with every other part of the community. They still interact with every other part of the city. They don't. Go ahead.
I mean, here's the problem, is that I understand what you're saying, is that you don't have to have like a monocultural thing where everyone has the exact same culture, but at the same time, I don't especially like the term multiculturalism. Because,
no, I understand what you mean.
Because the problem arises when you have cultures within a multiculture that are mutually exclusive from each other. When you have a subculture like Islam,
this is what I'm saying, is that when I say multiculturalist, what I kind of mean is that part of that requires, and this is the most important part of it, integration. Integration is key.
Yeah.
And so it means that there is a larger cultural subset of values that permeates the society, and then you have smaller groups with, you have the Italians, you have the Chinese, and they bring in their little aspects of culture, and they don't completely eliminate them from themselves. At least not in the first generation. It takes many generations for that to happen before they're completely integrated. But they don't completely veer off and just, like, they follow the laws. You follow the laws of the land. You don't do anything that would have been illegal that's illegal here that was legal in another country. You do certain things like that, and it's fine to be another culture. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in that context, yeah, I think that in that sense of the word, America has been a multicultural society for a long time. But but again, the problem I see with that in the context of Islam is that we don't have generations and generations for these people to integrate, because their ideas are already too far off from how we do things.
Well, it's kind of what I'm saying, is that they're incompatible at the moment with my kind of multiculturalism, which is also part nationalism, and that requires a large degree of integration. And because this group is refusing to integrate,
can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure I sound fucking awful. I'm on my phone. This is just my 2 cents. It's moral compatibility. So, for example, you talk Chinatown, you talk Latino area, whatever. They have a compatible morality, right? I mean, they have a notion of property rights and, showing up to work every day, and like there's a general understanding of kind of how things have to work.
Yeah.
You get into problems when you start dealing with, say, I don't know, some of these new black radical groups, for example, that have kind of a everything that is yours is mine attitude, or the Islamic things, because I mean, that's where you get the problem. So if they're willing to interact with the society in a mutually profitable manner, then it's fine. You can do this thing, but you have to have compatible morality. And if you don't, then there can be no law between you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and this is why I understand Guinness. I understand the context in which you're saying multiculturalism. Like it makes sense the way you're explaining it.
There should be a different term. I'm sure there's a better term I could use.
Yeah, I mean, because in the context of how multiculturalism is actually practiced and promoted, that's what everything the dog is saying is how it becomes a problem.
Right.
And I think that I think that the expectation of integration into the host culture sort of flies in the face of how, in particular, how European leftist politicians have tried to practice multiculturalism. Like the way they think of multiculturalism is sort of fundamentally different from how you're thinking of it.
No, absolutely, I agree, and it's more you could call it an idealist notion because maybe it's unlikely, but I still see it as like just because you're slightly isolationist like I am, or slightly nationalist, and that you have you think that your culture, maybe not better, but it is in certain ways better, but should be followed by those that join that culture and should be integrated within that society instead of forming enclaves. And that's really my big problem, is these cultural enclaves.
Well, right, but it's beyond that. So it gets to the notion of sort of a cultural sovereignty, right?
Yeah.
Your culture exists within certain geographic areas, right? And people within those geographic areas have to follow these laws. They follow, the codes of your society. And let's say some group comes into within your territory, doesn't follow your rules, and you do nothing about it. Well, you've just lost sovereignty.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, we should consider the fact that, yes, if Islam was entirely a foreign body, essentially, on European soil, then yes, you're right. But the problem that we have nowadays is really not the fresh new migrant. The problem is the second-generation migrant, someone that already might have German citizenship and usually already has German citizenship. He, for all intents and purposes, is German, but he's also a radical Muslim. Just a Muslim. I'm kind of confusing today. Just a Muslim, and also has tremendous loyalties. For instance, to Turkey. A lot of German Muslims have tremendous loyalties to Turkey.
Under the ethical codes of Germany, under the law of Germany, he's a citizen, but morally he is not a German.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way I would put it, and this is sort of, you mentioned the word loyalty, Layman. Some of you here in the stream or listening may have noticed, over the last week or so, I've been having this ongoing argument with Spinosauruskin about essentially my position is that if someone is in a host culture and they're doing things like providing material support or recruiting for ISIS, if they're setting up parallel legal systems, if they're making calls to action or inciting or intimidating for Sharia law or for other things that run contrary to the host culture, my position is essentially that existing treason and sedition laws should be exercised and used to remove these people. And I know that's a controversial thing to say, but I'm not advocating that the government should have any new powers or that Islam should be banned or anything ridiculous like that. These are powers that the government already has. And going back to the word loyalty, Layman, that's sort of what treason and sedition are about. It's like where does your loyalty lie? Are you a national of this country that you reside in, or first and foremost, or not? Which is why you have terms like aiding the enemy and things like that.
Well, yes, but the problem is, or rather the good thing, depending on which way you look at it, the German constitution guarantees liberty of religion. This also includes that you are free to practice whatever your religion entails and to preach your religion. And if advocating for Sharia courts, for instance, is an integral part of your religion, then you are not essentially committing treason in that context.
Oh, but this is one of the things that Spino and I went through, was like what is advocacy, and I think we came to an agreement that there are different degrees of advocacy, and my issue is when it becomes a call to action to enact something like that by force or intimidate the legislature into enacting it or something like that. But keeping in mind, of course, that this was a conversation in the context of the United Kingdom, where their treason laws are very similar to the ones in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm not sure how it works in Germany, to be honest.
A little bit of this reminds me of almost like a parent who refuses to punish their child because they don't want, like, you know, the kind of parent that it's like, oh, I'm going to do this, but they never actually do it. Like these laws exist for a reason, and if you make exceptions, then they're not even laws.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
what we're facing right now is not a faulty legal system, but a faulty, what's the English word?
Ideology.
A faulty guest, a faulty visitor. If you were, you cannot apply laws that are made for one country or one specific location, one specific people, and you can't apply them to just anyone else on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Morality, culture, your social upbringing, your education, everything that plays into this giant bundle that we call society. And if you were to, for instance, imply a tremendously, let's say, libertarian approach to parts of China, you would get absolute chaos out of it because people are not used to that kind of governance. On the other hand, if you were to apply a strictly authoritarian regime in Germany nowadays, it wouldn't work. German legal systems are designed for German people. If you suddenly include people that are not brought up in the same way, who do not share the values, don't even understand the basic notions within the German constitution, for instance, they are the issue, really not the legal system.
Well, I think people seem to be afraid of like having a representation of Germany. Like, oh, this is you know, you could be a German citizen, but to be German means this. And people are like, no, it means anything. It means I can be whatever the fuck I want. It's like, what's the point of being German then?
Well, I mean, it's sort of as if the last 70 years of German culture and education have sort of made them like they're sort of in the same mindset of Sweden, where they, you know, like, I don't know if you've ever seen, anyone here has ever seen the Swedish children's program where they're singing a song, literally singing "My country is yours, my country is yours," and it's like they've completely relinquished the idea of having a national identity.
No, that's really, no, Sweden is a different level, essentially, in Germany. I mean, they might be even playing two different games. In Germany, up until the year 1998, don't nail me on it, right? 1988 or 1999, elementary schools included songs such as a song for children about coffee awareness, because, you know, coffee is unhealthy and shit like that. And the final phrase of the coffee song was sei doch kein Muselmann, der das nicht lassen kann. Or in English, don't be a muzzy who can't let it be, who can't, you know, stop drinking coffee.
That's amazing.
German, like, we honestly, the problem I think here is reporting, right? If you, Edgy, and nothing against you and nothing against anyone else here, but if you are in a certain scene, in a certain community, in a certain sphere, I don't know what you want to call us, but if you are in such a loose association of people, it's very likely that you will be getting a very specific type of news. If you were to look at German history broadly, since the Second World War, you will notice that yes, there definitely was a shift, there definitely was a change in national identity, but at the same time, Germany included some hilariously racist bullshit in their education, in their comedy, in their entertainment, in their culture. It really just, it seems so on paper that it is Sweden, you know, but if you actually look into Germany, you'll notice that no, it's definitely not Sweden. I mean, one of the children's songs that I remember was Drei Chinesen mit dem Kontrabass, or in English, Three Chinese Men with a contrabass, with a bass. And and it was hilarious because one of the first things that you did was, you know, play around with the letters, you know, to teach children how to speak properly. And the first thing you did after singing it normally was to replace the R with an L to basically mimic how a Chinese person would be speaking German. Drei Chinesen mit dem Kontrabass. Basically mocking them.
Yeah, we still have that in America. That's very common in American entertainment. Maybe not in children's songs, but you see it all the time in like movies and TV shows.
What is the political drive? Because the whole thing is being pushed very hard by the German political system to get as many Muslim people or North Africans. I mean, do they even care who they bring in? Are they just looking for bodies?
I personally have been to. And it depends how you want to count. I've been, let's say, to 3 refugee camps in Germany, and honestly, they don't give a shit. They just want numbers.
That's
Yeah.
that's
honestly,
the
Because
Sorry, sorry.
that backs up my theory as to what is driving the whole thing. It's basically a desperate attempt to keep the welfare system going.
Essentially, yes. No, there was a very recent study, 2016, regarding what you would have to do to actually benefit from the recent refugee wave. I'm going to look it up if I can find it. And
It's doomed. It's doomed.
I think you and I discussed this a little bit, Layman. But you were telling me that if you could get enough of them to work, then it might be okay. But see, Fraulein helped me find a report on how many, and I'm not sure how accurate it is because I don't know which German sources are the most respected or trustworthy or whatever. But essentially, what she was able to tell me was that a report earlier this month found that about 136,000 refugees are working. But the problem with this report is that most of the refugees counted as working were from 2014, and very few of them were from the recent influx last year. So
I don't know this report you're referring to.
Yeah, I can link it to you.
There is this one study that I mentioned where it's basically a complete economic breakdown of the entire situation, and the point of it is basically this: 80% will fucking die. We fucked up, you know. We will be writing red numbers.
Die, my dude.
Of maybe having black numbers. Maybe. And even then, I mean, the investment until the year 2020 would be, I think it was 80 billion euro, which is quite a bit for Germany. Germany's GDP is 1,000 billion euro, so you know you can make the math. And even then, we would be looking at a very small return of about, let's say, 5 to 10 billion a year, which is really diminishable. You know, it's nothing if you compare it to crime, violence, radical Islam, and all that other nonsense.
Yeah, so, I mean, you mentioned that as well, that those numbers you were able to show me when I was working on that video for Crowd, those numbers you showed me didn't account for any of that, like any of the terrorism or crime or any of those things. It was just purely provisioning for them.
But that was essentially, that was, let's say, my fault, because you asked me for economic data, and it would be dishonest to suddenly bring in political stuff from my side.
No, yeah. I mean, I appreciate that. You know, I mean, it's a sad thing about your channel, man, is that you're so good at being objective and not spinning a narrative. But the problem is that people kind of want to hear a narrative.
Yeah, they do.
And so
absolutely they do.
And so I think what you do is really vital. Like, it's really important to have someone who is doing their best to look at things objectively. But at the same time, the problem for you is that people don't like that. And so it's like your channel should be much bigger than it is. But
here's a question. Here's a question. So if we've got the numbers, we should be able to make a clock. Like, how long does it take before the system eats its face?
That's kind of what I was going to ask. Like, what is, not only when, but what is it we're looking at in the future? What's going to happen? I mean, there's going to be some penultimate sort of, whether it's a single event or a series of events, something is going to happen. I know that kind of sounds ominous and vague, but there's clearly going to be a tipping point. And
I'm just trying to figure out when I can short Germany and make money.
I can give you an answer, but you have to give me a country, because
Germany.
Countries are really different in Europe. What country?
Germany.
Okay. I think I'm going to give you the most honest answer I can give you. We are not necessarily looking at a long-term increase in violence and crime. What we are looking at, however, is a tremendous increase in social volatility.
Well, I'm looking at insolvency. Is actually what I'm more interested in. Like when do the Germans run out of money?
Never. Actually, the proposed budget until 2020 is balanced, meaning we have a nice zero over our bills, which is good. And even then, up until then, the German national debt was rather low compared to other European countries.
Well,
compared to
then why
world.
does Germany need to bring people in? If everything was balanced prior to bringing in the migrants actually hurt the bottom line, then why were they trying to bring people in? Because it seems like the wise thing to do would be to just not do it.
Brownie points?
Well, the problem is birth rates in Europe.
Yeah,
We are looking in Germany at a tremendous lack of skilled labor, of educated labor, and without
so
education.
So you bring in North Africans, who are, as we all know, skilled labor. What are you talking about?
Listen, man, I'm just saying what their reasoning is. You know, I'm not.
I know.
Well, hold on, Doug. I mean, this is correct that the German leadership, and in fact the European leadership as a whole, has basically used that as a justification for the migrant crisis. Is, you know, it's like we were saying a moment ago. Okay, we have this welfare system set up, but our own people aren't having kids fast enough, so we're going to say that let's bring in North Africans en masse to sustain our welfare system. Is essentially what's happening. And the problem with that is that the migrants, by and large, are not finding work. Some of them are, but the majority of them are not. So they've just become an additional liability.
Yeah.
But that was all very predictable. But the thing, okay, so I guess what I'm trying to figure out here is why the panic for more people if the books were already balanced?
I think, you know, I can't read the minds of the politicians in Germany. I can't do that. But I think that there are two main reasons for that. First, it was fear of an escalating social situation, because those trends regarding childbirth and the overall aging of a society, those trends are not linear in their progression. They turn out to be very exponential, and within 25 or 50 years, the demographic makeup of Germany could be entirely different than it is now if completely left unaccounted for and unchecked. So maybe it was a preventive measure. Let's get in a lot of young people. But also I think there was a certain element of opportunism in all of this. You had a lot of refugees from Northern Africa and the Middle East, even way before we started even fucking them up, right? We already had an assload of refugees in the 90s and in the 80s. But suddenly you had those huge swaths of people looking for a new place to go, and Germany thought to themselves, you know what? Those people are young. We could use them in the workforce. We can use them to boost our birth rates. And opportunism struck, and now we are left with 1.3 billion idiots.
Here's one of the things that I always find to be a little specious, I guess, about the whole panic over population. What was the population of Germany 100 years ago, right? I think it was less than it is now.
Considerably less, yes.
Right, and so you see the same thing in Japan. You know, everyone's like, "Oh, the population of Japan." I mean, population in Japan 100 years ago is a lot less, and I don't think the Japanese felt that they were, you know, a dwindling people 100 years ago. Why this need for always a bigger and bigger and bigger population? Why can't we just be like
population? It's about a younger population.
Well, fine, but the thing is that if you're going to go for a smaller population, you're going to have a generation of older people as you shift from one population size to another, right? And so what? You're not going to zero.
You're touching on exactly one of the big problems in all of this. The logical conclusion would be to say, you know what? We are not able to sustain the current population of Germany. Ergo, we will probably not be able to sustain the percentage of young people. So, we will not be able to pay for the rents and pensions and the welfare system for old people.
Boom, it goes back to welfare again. So see, you're saying it's balanced, but see, I don't think it is. I think, look, I mean, in the United States, it's very typical for the government to play games with the budget, particularly in California. I think they hid something like 300, oh God, no, it was $150 billion of debt was hidden in the state of California.
Holy fuck.
Now, keep in mind, California has roughly the same economy of Italy, as far as the scale. Yeah, and so, but you know, they play games with the budget all the time, and I don't think that, you know, the Europeans don't do that as well. I think we all know they do, and I think there's a lot of keep calm and carry on that goes on with this shit. and I think that there is probably some nonsense hidden in that budget. You saw this with Brazil. I mean, like Alan can tell us what happened with the communists in Brazil. I mean, literal fucking communists were hiding money in the large, I think it's like a mineral or oil company that Brazil has. They basically offloaded most of the government's debt into sort of a quasi-private state monopoly, and they were, by that mechanism, able to artificially lower their debt. Sorry.
Right. So I'm trying to jump in here for a sec. I'm kind of curious, and I'm kind of a simple guy. What do you guys think is the solution? Because I mean, like, a lot of the times when I talk about solutions, I feel like I'm talking about what could have been done to have prevented the problem. But given the problem that we're faced with now, what can we do to solve the situation? Particularly, let's focus on Germany for the moment. Layman, what do you think?
Yes. Let me start off by saying one slightly related thing. People often want results, they want facts, they want outcomes. The problem is we should not rush an outcome. We should first and foremost get research done, get talking done, fully understand the situation and not just go by a vague notion because we've read in some tabloid that something may or may not be true. So the first step we need to do is establish a society-wide, that means including uneducated people, a society-wide debate and inclusion into policy making. And after we've reached a consensus, after we've done enough research, after we've done enough data gathering, then we can talk about policies. With that said, with the current data that I have on hand, I think one of the most crucial things we have to do is break up secluded Islamic enclaves. That's one of the first things. Second, we have to decide, do we want to take in every refugee we can, or do we not want that? Because if we want to do that, we desperately need to improve the refugee camps, and maybe even completely abolish them, and try to integrate refugees from the get-go into broader German society. If you leave a refugee camp just for a single month in the current state it is, you will have only one thing out of it, a headquarters for crime, violence, and radicalization. The conditions are really not good enough for proper integration. So,
I mean, I think I just have a question. The current plans are to keep bringing in more of them, aren't they?
Depends. The most recent proposal by the BAMF of Germany, the Federal Agency for Migrants and Refugees, was that next year we should be seeing 300,000, and if the number should stick around that 300,000, they should be able to handle it properly. To which the Social Democrats responded, let's keep the number 300,000 as a sort of top-level number, and everything above that we have to reject. To which the CDU said, fuck off. So there is a bit of debate going on.
Oh, yeah, see, that's the thing is, like, I agree that, obviously research should be done, but the problem is that if the German government keeps bringing in more and more people, then the data keeps changing. It keeps deepening the research that you have to do.
They also lie.
That too. So it's sort of I've sort of been despairing about this because it seems like, I mean, I'm not German, I guess it's sort of not my business and not my problem, so to speak, but at the same time, it's like I kind of care about this. It's like I
think it would be personally, I think it would be ignorant to assume that this isn't going to spread further. I think that this is in my personal opinion, I think that this is going to get worse and it's going to get farther spread. So I don't think it's going to be contained to Europe for long.
Do we want to do any Man of the High Castle theorizing as to what's going to happen to Europe when all those fucking tits up?
And that's the other thing is that, as much as Americans and Europeans talk shit about each other, your problems are our problems and vice versa.
Yeah.
It's you guys are right. It's not like I can just sit over here. We can't just sit over here in America and go, ha, look at what the Europeans did. They fucked up, and pretend like this isn't going to affect us because it is.
Yeah, specifically, like for me, like as a Canadian, we're like that weird middle ground between sometimes we try to act like we're European because we came from Britain, but we're still like North American. So we have these weird policy in betweens where sometimes we're like America, but sometimes we're like Europe. So I feel like, I mean, we're already accepting. I think we just accepted 30,000 refugees into Canada. So I mean, it's already becoming a problem here, and I don't think it's going to be long before we start seeing on that. Like I'm kind of not worried, but I'm expecting, because there has been not a lot of precedent for terrorist attacks in Canada, but I'm expecting there to be pretty soon, unfortunately.
Also, let's not forget about our dear Central and Eastern Europe. I mean, those guys will not accept refugees, period.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't think we appreciate the level of... I don't even want to fucking approve of that. I mean, the level of narrow-mindedness, the level of, this is my state, you fuck off, in Eastern Europe is on such a level that I don't think most of us even remotely understand the notion.
Well, I mean,
wait. What do you mean? I don't understand it. What do you say narrow-mindedness? Explain to me what you mean.
I'm not suggesting anything with it. I'm just saying that when looking at Eastern Europe, even from society at large, you will have, for instance, a tremendous sentiment against Islam, even without understanding what Islam actually is. Let's say the average awareness of what Islam is, what the Quran is, what the Hadiths are, is abysmally low. But they know they are camel fuckers, they want to rape their women, and they are a bunch of terrorists, and that's all they need to know, you know. And
well, at the same time, I would say actually they probably have a better grasp on a lot of this stuff than a lot of people, because if you look at the history of these countries, they were on the fucking front lines the last time this rolled through. Yeah, and I think the scars of that are the legend of their whole societies at this point.
My theory in this regard is that, okay, imagine you are, for instance, I don't know, Slovakia or Poland or something like that. You have been pushed around by bigger powers than you are for quite a while now. And after the Second World War, you get basically swallowed into a block of totalitarian countries, right? And you live through oppression and dictatorship, violence and all that nonsense. Meanwhile, the West is having it comparably good, you know? And one day, you get out of it, and you are like, Jesus, man, fucking finally, I'm rid of all the totalitarian nonsense. And the next day, Mohammed knocks on your door and wants to build a fucking mosque on your town square.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is fucked up. I don't think that. Again, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, and I think that this whole thing is not going to be contained to just. I mean, everyone's like, you know, the migrant crisis in Europe. Well, I mean, that's just because at the moment it's the most convenient place to get to. But what happens in 10 years if this is still going on? When
let me correct you on something.
Why wasn't this a problem 100 years ago?
It is not the most convenient place to go. That is not correct. If you look at the destinations chosen by the current refugees, you will find that Sweden, France, the United Kingdom, and Germany are amongst the top destinations. Mostly Sweden. I think 30% of all refugees want to get to Sweden. Now, there are countries on the way that already, based on European Union law, are labeled as a safe country, meaning they would actually have to apply for refugee status in those countries. For instance, the Czech Republic or Hungary or Austria or something like that. But they desperately try to get to those 4 countries.
Okay, but why? You were saying that that's not the most convenient place. Where's the closest, most convenient place that they could go to that would give them what they want? Why is it they're seeking these 4 countries?
No. They're asking 2 questions there. They could get you asked first convenient places they could get to, sure, and then you said convenient places that will give them what they want.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right,
okay. The places they're going for are the only countries that are going to give them what they want.
Okay.
Let me rip you a little something here. You know, a little bit of trivia that you will not know without being a social researcher. The Czech Republic tried to establish a small refugee program. I think 98 refugees were selected to basically have a experiment to see if you can get them integrated into Czech society. And so you had volunteer workers and actually doctors and psychologists go through various refugee camps and centers and trying to select some really good people overall. Within a year, 48 of those 98 refugees decided to fuck off, and within another year, only 14 were left. And most of the reasons were because we are not getting enough money and we don't like the food.
It wasn't good enough, the free shit you gave me. It wasn't good enough.
Well, there were some refugees in England that were settled in northern Scotland, and they're like, no, going back to North Africa. The weather is absolutely intolerable. I will kill myself. No.
I don't know. This whole crisis is ridiculous. I mean, it's the fact that right now it's as bad as it is in Germany and particularly France. Like, let's move on to France actually for a second, because France seems to be like the absolute the pinnacle of how bad it gets. I mean,
oh, you mean the country with the 35% of all Muslims who are willing to kill for Islam? You mean that country? Oh, right. Yes.
I don't know. Like, I watched. Was unfortunate enough to watch the Nice thing. Like, I watched that unfold. I watched right after that. I watched Turkey unfold, and I'm just like, I'm sitting there and I'm going, what the fuck is France doing? And then like actually, this whole shit promoted me to start making. I made my first video, like my own video the other day, and I mentioned in it, France has recently decided, okay, here's how we're going to solve this refugee problem. Let's ban burkinis, because that's fucking logical. Let's, fuck screening at the border. No, burkinis are what we got to go after. What the fuck is wrong with them?
Let me tell you exactly the reasoning behind that, right?
Yeah.
Our people are desperate, they are frightened, and they want to see action. We don't want to ban Islam. We don't want to sting into that, wasp's nest, essentially. We don't want them to fuck us up.
They'd rather poke it.
What do? We will ban the one thing that a few hundred women throughout France are wearing and that nobody gives a shit about. That'll show them.
Right, what the fuck? I'm just like you guys must... It's like they want to do something, and it's like somebody sitting there like, oh, fucking Muslims, what are we going to do? Let's take away their burkinis. They're so mean, guys. What are we going to do? Like, do something. Stop just sitting there cowering in the corner and, like, occasionally poking them back with a stick. You need to actually stand up and fight.
Perhaps you should start deporting. Perhaps you should start deporting illegals, because that is, well, I mean, I don't know much about the French law, but in my country, it's basically impossible to deport an illegal.
That was what I was saying about like
crazy.
Yeah, it seems that's what I was saying about like it seems like it's almost like some parents who refuse to punish their children. They're like, oh, it's okay, Billy, I'll let you get away with it, even though I told you I would punish you. It's like, no, there's laws. They say this is what you have to do. You have to punish these people that disobey these laws. If they're illegal in the country. Sadly,
it's not a refusal of punishment. It also is very often the inability to punish. In accordance with international law, you can only deport a person if you can, above any doubt, prove that the person is from the country you want to deport it back to.
Right.
Most of the countries where we're getting refugees from don't have a functioning census bureau.
Hold on. I think I just heard a terrorist attack happening in the background.
That's probably an Asian youth attack.
Yeah, it's just youths acting out, expressing themselves. That's all.
Damn youths.
So what you have is a lot of people. The first thing they do once they reach German soil is throw away their papers. Now Germany is, in accordance with Article 16a.1 of their constitution, obliged to at least take them in for due process, whether or not they are eligible for refugee status or for asylum status. But even if they were to attempt to deport them, where are they supposed to deport them to? There is no legal framework for such a situation.
Hell.
But see, the issue I have here, I've had this point raised to me over the last week, and the issue I have is that, speaking from an American context, we have a lot of undocumented migrants of our own, and at least in the past, prior to Obama's presidency, we did deport them in large numbers.
So you're saying thanks, Obama?
Well, no. What I'm saying is that we couldn't necessarily prove, because those people were undocumented, we couldn't prove beyond a shadow of a doubt where they came from, and yet we still deported them. So forgive me for being Amerocentric here, but it's sort of like basically my question is, why should I care? Like, why do I care where they go as long as it's out of my country?
Because you are bound both as a nation, as a union of nations, and as a member of the United Nations to apply certain laws and certain international treatises.
Wait. You say we're bound. What happens if we don't?
And wait, do those override the laws that they're breaking?
What are you going to do?
One at a time.
Hold
One at a time, guys.
Hold on, guys. I mean, my point here is really that, okay, yes, according to the law, we are supposedly bound, and yet America has done this many times in very large numbers. We've deported people without knowing where they came from and sending them somewhere that they may not have actually come from. So,
do you have some data on that?
Yeah, I can pull it up, but I know that previous presidents have deported hundreds of thousands and in some cases millions of undocumented immigrants apiece. And if this is a violation of international law, then the U.S. has been doing it by the millions of instances.
Well, the U.S. does have a very interesting track record of violating international laws.
Yeah, somebody in the chat says America breaks law all the fucking time.
Well, wait a minute. Well, this is what I was trying to get at previously. There's this notion of international law, which is, sorry to say, it's kind of an oxymoron. Because to have international law, you have to have sovereignty.
Yeah.
And an international law would require an international sovereign, and that doesn't exist. So all you've got is basically an agreement between countries to do certain things.
I think you're confusing terms there.
No, I'm not. I'm not actually. It's a projection of sovereign legal concept into an international context where it has no relevance.
No, I think what you're referring to is supranational law. International law is quite simply only agreed upon treatises.
Sure, whatever. And the thing is that if I don't, no, but it doesn't matter though, because at the end of the day, so let's say in your country, it's against the law to do something, right? What happens if I break that law? The police are going to do something, or I'll get a fine from somebody, right?
Yes.
Okay. What if you can do literally? What if you literally can do nothing?
So essentially you mean that you are essentially forbidden from existing?
No. What I mean is, let's say there's a law that I can't do a thing, but when I violate that law, you do nothing to me.
Well, then you...
What's the point of that law?
Okay, then the law doesn't exist. The law doesn't exist is the point.
So, just to return
of course it does exist. You have, for instance, geringe Menge, which is a German legal concept where every state is free to decide what level of, what amount of drugs actually will warrant a process. And for instance, Berlin, you can have up to 15 grams of weed. Bavaria, you are completely forbidden to have any kind of weed. And the federal law quite simply states that the possession of marijuana is illegal, but you can get away with possessing up to, say, 15 grams in Berlin. So you still have that law.
Can we get away with the fucking autistic fucking drug laws? Because the issue with the drug laws is that basically there's like a disagreement. It's like some people wanted to be legalized and some other people wanted to be delegalized. Or to be kept illegal, and so you basically have this disagreement in society, and so effectively the law gets selectively nullified. But let's focus on, like, I don't know, murder. Okay, let's say it's illegal to kill people, right? But when I kill people, nothing happens.
Well, if I may interject, gentlemen.
Oh my God, more exists.
Well, you know me. I prefer to listen for a little while. Laws are not put into place to prevent anything. Laws are put into place to punish. So if they do not punish, then when they are infringed, or I guess I don't want to say infringed upon, but when they are broken, what is the point in even having them? They have no power.
It's just somebody saying, you can't do that otherwise.
So to return to a point from a few minutes ago, this is from Pew Research Center here. U.S. deportations of immigrants reach record high in 2013. Now this is, I should preface this by saying I'm more concerned with the data prior to the Obama administration because on a related note, the Obama administration actually redefined what a deportation actually means. But looking back here towards the left side, like prior to 2008, you see these numbers are in thousands, and you can see that these are undocumented immigrants being deported by the hundreds of thousands by the Bush administration, and apparently this was a violation of international law because they're undocumented, they necessarily couldn't prove where they came from or if they're going back to the proper place, and yet our government still did this. Now on the point of Obama, the way that he changed the definition of a deportation was that he changed it to include people apprehended at the border, as well as people who willingly returned to where they came from, which is those things were previously not included in the definition of a deportation, which is why it looks like Obama has deported more people when really by the previous definition he hasn't.
Also, to Will's point, if you have exceptions to any law, then it essentially a law has to apply universally or it's not a law, in my opinion. So if you have like an international law that says you can't deport these people, and the U.S. did anyway, and they weren't punished for it, or they weren't given any consequences for it, then what is the authority by which these international laws are governed by?
Pressure from the United States of America. So that's why international law frequently just is kind of like laughed off when it hits the United States. It's just like, you and what army, buddy?
Well, I mean, just in a more general sense, the whole concept of international law, as far as I understand it, is sort of a Western concept. It's a Western invention, and it's sort of like it's ours to break because non-Western governments largely don't follow it. Like, we know the Saudis don't follow international law. They don't give a fuck about international law, and we let them get away with it. So why would we hold Europe to a higher standard than that? Why would we hold European countries to a higher standard?
Because it is not you who holds up anyone for a higher standard or something like that. It is the countries that do that themselves. It is the German wish to apply the specific instance of international law. And in the German, let's say, moral ideals, it would be wrong to break this international law.
So,
but that's not international law, though. That's a projection of the German people upon themselves. I mean, it's not international. That's a national law.
Yeah, I mean, we've sort of arrived at this point where whether or not international law really has any value is sort of a totally subjective thing based on the perspective of the leaders of a given country, like whether they
should try to do. We should try to get for the next time someone who actually is really, maybe a master's degree in international law or something like that. That would be pretty nice, I guess. Because I really, it's not my field of research. There is a limit to what I can offer in this context.
All right, sorry, I was giving Lenny moderator status.
With that said,
I guess. Sorry, Layman. Go ahead.
Yeah. With that said, I already overstretched my stay by 15 minutes, guys. I would have to leave very, very soon.
Okay.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Layman.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. Actually, we should have a hangout sometime in the future. Get shit-faced and shit-talk.
Do you have us on? Or are you in Giza or something? Like I get a hold of you because YouTube is fucking annoying to get a hold of you with.
I am on Giza, yes, but I don't have Discord with me right now. I can't.
I know, but just like when you get a chance, I'll send you an ad or something. We'll figure it out.
Yes, I'll try reaching me via Twitter. I'm usually available via Twitter.
Okay.
I think we all have to get red pilled on Durkheim, so that has to happen in the future. We have to get red pilled on Durkheim.
What the fuck is Durkheim? What are you talking about?
Oh, wow.
You don't know who Emil Durkheim is?
Wow. No, nothing.
Get killed, my dude.
So apparently we do need.
I need to get red pilled on sociology.
Oh god, I'll bring up my sociology book.
See you around, guys.
Take it easy, Layman. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks, Layman. See ya.
All right, guys. So we're gonna keep going for another, half an hour, 45 minutes. So anybody have anything
I just feel like this whole, as we were saying a minute ago, I feel like this whole international law thing is sort of a cop-out on the part of these leaders who don't. I feel like someone like Merkel, for instance, someone like Theresa May, the new Prime Minister of the UK. I feel like these people just don't want to look bad. They don't want to renege on the refugee thing. They don't want to renege on taking migrants in, and so they're basically this is the excuse that is used is that international law when really it's already been established that this is something that there are no consequences for breaking.
So wait, Edgy, are you saying that the democratic processes throughout many Western countries are being subverted by unelected bodies of faceless bureaucrats?
Yeah, it's almost as if that's what's happening.
That's almost as if.
Bureaucrats? No, bureaucrats has to echo.
I'm not saying the bureaucrats are taking over, but.
Well, I mean, the reason I brought up deportation is I think you guys, I don't know, terrorist attacks happen practically weekly in Europe, but I mean,
well, yeah,
the guy who attacked two cops.
Wayne is in chat. Invite Wayne.
He can't come in. He can't.
Yeah, he has no microphone. But
guys,
the guy who attacked. Sorry.
No, Lenny was trying to make a serious point, and you guys are just shitposting over him.
Yeah, that's really rude. Really rude. No.
Don't be mean to Lenny.
Yeah, don't be mean to me, guys. Don't bully me. But anyway.
He's talking about 10th century crusades shitposting.
Yeah, it kind of is. No, okay, so I was going to mention the guy who attacked the cops in Charleroi. Sorry for mispronouncing that, but it's a stupid French city in Belgium. And he machete attacked two female cops, and they were both heavily injured. That guy had 3 deportation notices. We couldn't deport him for some reason, even though a deportation notice. So basically, they said to him, if you don't leave the country, there will be consequences. Nothing happened. He had like 3 deportation notices. He pretended to be mentally ill so he could stay in the country. By EU law, we could not remove him because the EU, by the way, but this is actually the sort of way that international law has some power in Europe, because the EU sort of has its human rights clause. So the EU can, if a member state of the EU violates the EU human rights agreement, they can give them a form of punishment, and they can even abridge the constitution if they want to do that. But that's what the EU can do. But basically, what I'm saying is that the EU and basically also our own nation states in Europe are basically preventing us from deporting anyone, even though.
But see, that's also a sham, because okay, let's say you're an EU member, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you're Eastern Europe, because I mean it's incomprehensible that a lot of the Western European countries would have the fucking stones to do it. But let's say there's an Eastern European country that's being told, well, you're breaking an EU law, you have to do what we say, change your constitution. A lot of these countries are just going to say, or I mean, and this is, I mean, the Western European countries could say it as well, they just won't. They could just say, you and what army? And you could say, oh, well, there's an EU army, but it's not enough to overwhelm any of the national armies. Like, and the EU doesn't have the fucking stones either to actually go in there and fight anybody. Like if the Poles just said, nah, suck my dick. I mean, what is the EU going to do? I mean...
Well, the EU is not going to do much.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I agree they're not going to do much, but the problem is that in Western Europe...
Because they're going to suck that dick.
We basically, in Western Europe, have elected a bunch of... I was going to call them real-life cucks, but they pretty much act like... They just take everything. Like, because those people would actually, like, bend over when the EU tries to do something. Like, in Eastern Europe, they don't care, really. They really don't care. But I don't know. Most Western European countries are very. It's almost like they like the fact that they're being. Like,
well, this is This is Edgy's.
dominated.
This is Edgy's point, and I'm trying to spiral it back in to show there's a similarity with the EU and the UN in that a lot of these countries will say, oh well, we can't do it because the EU said we can't. Oh darn, you know. But the reality is that the EU really can't stop you if you just say, you know, suck a dick, EU.
If you don't have any way to enforce a law or any kind of authority in general, then you're just somebody screaming at other people to do what you say.
Well, but the EU does have more power than the UN when it comes to that, because the EU has power over the nation states to some extent. Because the EU passes a lot of
what do you
things
do?
in the parliament, which go
okay,
to
fine,
national
but let's say Belgium just decides to go fully fucking rogue, right?
Mhm.
And they just don't care anymore.
Can I say that they have power because they're a power hub for all of European politicians to get around and say, whatever the fuck they want. But if you play their cards, you gain political power in your state or in your country to do what you want.
But
so they have power because if you do what they want, you're the guy that they want you. They want you. They don't want the other guy that doesn't do what they want.
Right.
So, for example, if Nigel Farage, for example, had political ties with the EU and did what he said, or the UN, for example, I think that he would be much more prevalent, much more eloquent than he is right now. But I'm not sure if his political views stem from going against those guys. But if he was a politician that would go on with the side of them, with that they said, I think that he would be more successful, just like any other political leader is.
Well, possibly personally they might, but but let's just go with the thought experiment here. Let's say that Belgium decided to just go fucking rogue, and they decided to go hard as a motherfucker, just complete fucking ham.
The only way the EU could do something is they could. So you're right. They don't necessarily have military means to do it, but they could try to very much annoy you when it comes to international trade, because all our trade is done through the EU. So basically, if they wanted to fuck us over, if we started acting badly, they would just basically keep us out of all the trade deals.
Right. Now, I think Belgium might actually not be able to survive that, because you are very reliant on good relations with the EU. But like, say, England or France or Germany, one of the larger economies. If the EU really just decided to be obnoxious, one of those countries could just go, does anybody in the world want our French wine, our Italian leather, or I think they'd be fine.
Hey man, a lot of people want Belgian chocolate, but
no,
but I mean, sure, but I mean it's basically in Western Europe, it's a combination of EU regulation, but it's also then the combination of the nation states themselves sort of surrendering to the EU. It's not
right, but I think they want. I think
they
are
could
mount a resistance to the extent that I think they want to surrender. I think they want to. I think the issue is that there is no leverage really. Or the leverage is really not that much. But the thing is, they want to submit.
Yeah, basically.
So if somebody says, "Oh, my international law," the EU, I think it's that they want to do what they're being told to do anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So because there's no actual gun behind the stick of international law. There's nothing. You can't actually, like, I mean, I've said this like 3 times, but you can't if it's just somebody, it's just going to be somebody screaming, because you have to enforce the law, and the law has to apply universally. If the law doesn't apply universally and it's not being enforced universally, then it's not a law. It's just a punishment in certain circumstances that some people accept.
Right. Well, I mean, so like in international law, so if you do something that pisses the U.S. off, and the U.S. can get a coalition behind whatever you did that they don't like, then the United States, having a big fuck-off military, could go in there and say, well, you said you weren't going to do it, and now I'm going to make you very sorry. But, you piss off, I don't know, Switzerland. What are you going to do, Switzerland?
Yeah, well, Switzerland, yeah, they're not going to care at all.
Well, I mean, whatever. I mean, look, so like there are certain countries that you don't want to piss off because they might be able to do something. You don't want to piss off China. You don't want to piss off Russia. You don't want to piss off the U.S. But outside of a few countries that can actually do something, it's like, whatever. Be mad.
I mean, basically, but I mean, I'll just give you a small example of, like, because I'm not actually only blaming the EU, because it's also just a bunch of very lenient politicians who pretty much forgive anything. Like, recently we passed, our Minister for Asylum or whatever passed a bill that would fine people who would come into Belgium illegally. So if you come into Belgium illegally before this bill, you would not even be fined. You'd simply probably be sent to an asylum center, and then they find some way to make you enter legally. But I mean, so that just shows you, in my opinion, that we didn't have this. We didn't even fine people who came in illegally. We just made them legal. And that's the entire EU mindset to illegal immigration is this: illegal immigration. We're going to reduce illegal immigration by making illegals illegal, basically. So the EU wants to redefine illegal to legal. They just want to make it way easier. They want to make it way easier to get
literally
in
the same thing they're doing in the United States.
Yeah, basically.
What they're also trying to do in the United States, and you can always spot the fucking subversive assholes when you see shit like this happening, is they're trying to remove the term illegal immigrant from American speech in the United States. They're also removing it actively from a lot of our legal codes. So you will not see the words illegal immigrant in a lot of new bills. A lot of bills are being rewritten just to like change it to undocumented, whatever politically correct term they come up with. So yeah, it's
no human
it's kinda
being
what
is
they do.
illegal, dog. No human being is illegal. You can't say that.
I know it's.
It's like saying the N-word. It's the same thing.
Yeah. So if I stab you in the throat, I'm not illegal. Come here, buddy.
Well, basically, but I mean, just the majority of these people who have been doing crimes are either illegal, or they've been, at least in Europe, or either they have been legal in Europe and therefore they're able to travel all around Europe via the Schengen zone. And I don't know, it's really dangerous, actually. I'm just confused. I'm still kind of confused because, like, it seems that all the West European countries are implementing suicidal policies, and they're laughing whilst they're doing it. It's
Okay,
like,
so
this
one
is
thing,
crazy.
when I start seeing behavior like this, I think that there might actually be some data somewhere that suggests that there was a certain amount of urgency that this happened. Like, you know, and so I don't know if I've delved briefly into some of the European statistics, and I find it very difficult to go through your websites because half of them aren't in English, and the other half of them that are just call everything by a different name, and it's rather impenetrable. I'm pretty good at dealing with U.S. statistics. I know the U.S. departments that I can go through, and I can track the data down. But one of the things that is very typical, and I was getting to this previously with California, with the United States government itself, there's a lot of hiding of data. Like the U.S. unemployment stats, which everybody knows. It's a well-known example of a bullshit statistic because it's not counting people that are out of work really. It's counting people that are out of work and have only been out of work for like a year or something.
Yeah,
and if you've been out of work for more than that.
And additionally, who are reporting that they've been out of work to the government.
Exactly. There you go.
I mean, the statistics is kind of annoying because in my country, I think it's the same in Germany, a lot of European countries, but it's illegal to, for example, have criminal statistics that reference the ethnicity of the person who does the criminal act.
Right.
So if I want to have a criminal statistics on like, do illegals have a higher crime rate, or do people who come from North African countries have a higher crime rate? That's
well, I mean, come on, Lenny. Come on, Lenny. The ethnicity is absolutely irrelevant. Clearly, it has nothing to do with anything, right? Like,
yeah, basically.
What are you, some kind of racist? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's obviously a controversial issue in the United States, but it is interesting to look at the U.S. statistics broken down that way. There's some really kind of fascinating.
Hey, Edgy. Sorry to cut you, dog. I just wanted to point out that, Edgy, the race has nothing to do. Though it's not like a race commits the most crime per capita than the other. The races.
Oh, right? yeah. All races
has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, all races commit an equal amount of crime. There's nothing to see here.
So there's two things, or there's a bunch of different stats that are really interesting on this. So one thing which I recommend anybody look at, it's very, very kind of cool, is the Los Angeles homicide map, and it's basically a no, it's really cool. It's no, it is. Yeah, I've showed it to everybody. It's like you look at this thing and you're just like impressed by how awesome it is.
I mean, you can have a similar experience looking at the Chicago homicide map. Here,
no, you can't. No, I'm sorry, Chicago. Get fucked. LA homicide map is so much better.
You think so?
Oh yeah, no. Okay, so the LA homicide map is basically like a Google Maps, and literally every single homicide gets a little button on there, and you can click on them, and it has a crime report. It says the whole thing, like the whole story on that thing, and it's got data that goes back years and years, and it's all mapped in, so you can sort of back out and look at sort of the blood splatter across the city and figure out, okay, maybe I don't want to live in like the center of that. I actually used it when I rented an apartment many years ago because I was looking at a bunch of different apartments that had different prices, and I was like, wow, this is a really nice apartment. Why is this so cheap? And I correlated the address with the LA homicide map, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, you're going to be surrounded by Guillermo's, basically.
Well, no, not Guillermo's. So it was unfortunately a little close to the sort of the black ghettos.
South Central.
A little in there. They're trying to gentrify those areas by attracting. Like they build really nice apartments in those areas, and they're like, so hipsters want to move in here and deal with this, and it's like, it's okay because I mean, if a hipster gets stabbed, oh well.
No big loss.
Yeah.
If anything, it's a benefit, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this is the thing. So when I studied the crime statistics in my country, basically I was trying to find the link between immigrants and crime because I'm a racist. And the only thing I came upon was that 40% of our prison population are illegals, and I was like, whoa. So 40% of people in the Belgian prison system are came into Belgium illegally, and so then I have to conclude that it seems that if illegals form a small percentage of the population, that they have a higher crime rate than most natives. But I don't know. It's just impossible in the European system to get any good crime statistics based on anything else than age and sex.
I mean, Layman himself actually did an excellent. I think it was a couple of different videos actually. But he did an excellent video on this, demonstrating that across Europe, not just in Germany, but in a variety of European countries, Muslims are by far the most criminal group out of any other group. Mm-hmm. They have the highest rate of criminality in like all over Europe.
Yeah, that's really surprising.
Yeah, I'm completely shocked, you guys.
Well, in the United States, this is a fun statistic. Muslims make up the highest per capita users of welfare in the United States, higher than any other. If you want to like a black single women, right, use less welfare per capita than Muslims do.
That's fucking amazing.
That's pretty astounding, considering that that black single women are up there themselves. They're like second place probably.
Well, they well could be, but I mean, yeah, that was I saw that stat and I was like, okay, it is yet again the fucking welfare.
I mean, it's similar here because sorry, Mort, you were gonna talk.
Well, I mean, I have a question, but and I'm not by any means trying to throw a cog into the machine, but because I'm genuinely curious, is it?
The machine has redundancies. Try
it.
I'm curious just to see what the machine will do.
When you use such big words, Doge. Does crime truly relate to race, or does it relate to poverty?
It correlates. It correlates, right. and some correlations are stronger than others. Let's put it that way. Okay. There's no way to pin down biologically that this particular group has a higher criminality because of their biology, but it's more of a simple observation that this is the case.
It does actually. What it actually correlates with is culture, and culture in many cases correlates with race. So if for example you've got a kid of name the ethnic background who is adopted and raised by a family of a different ethnic background, the stats on that kid tend to be his adopted family's ethnic norms as far as educational attainment, economic standing, whatever else. And it's just it's the values. It's like, oh well, you were raised this way, and that's how you're going to be. And so if you raise a kid in a really awful environment, you teach him a bunch of bullshit, and slap his ass and send him out in the world, he's going to do some awful shit. I mean, that's just what it is.
But is it? But then again, does that make it race? Does that make it an issue of race?
Well,
This is
obviously not. It's
completely-
Obviously not.
This is completely
Yeah.
anecdotal, but like, okay, I live across the river from Detroit, and I've been to Detroit many times. And while Detroit is majority of black, it's not just black. That's blacks that are committing crime and or that are in poverty. Like there is a lot of white gangbangers, a lot of them. I don't know. It's anecdotal.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not saying I have a position either way. I'm just-
8 Mile, am I right? Come on, just Eminem that
well,
shit.
actually, 8 Mile is a lot. 8 Mile's got some white people. It's
Spaghetti?
actually pretty black. But
Mom's spaghetti, guys.
Yeah,
Mom's
Mom's
spaghetti.
I mean, it's interesting because we have a very small black community here, but they have basically exactly the same crime statistics you might imagine as in the U.S. So I don't know.
So in Los
I'm not necessarily saying
Angeles.
that- I'm not necessarily saying that it's the melanin in their skin that makes
No,
them
well,
rape white
okay.
girls.
So here's a really good example of why it is not economics necessarily. If you look at Los Angeles, which has, I mean, it's where I live, so I have a better handle on it than anywhere else. There's an enormous amount of ethnic diversity. You've got Chinese and Korean and Japanese and Vietnamese and Armenian. I mean, just fucking everybody. It's like we're a small world, right? And the thing is that there are a lot of parts of LA that are really poor, but fewer places that are violent and that have high crime. So there are a lot of places that are poor that are not crime-ridden. So, for example, the Chinese areas are generally not very rich.
Yeah, I mean that's
But
something.
they are very peaceful.
That's something I find interesting is that you simply don't see like the excuse for the black community in the U.S. is often poverty, but to Dog's point, you simply don't see the same level of disproportionate criminality in similarly poor communities of other races. It just isn't there.
But the problem in and of itself is not race; it's culture. It's the type of culture, and
Yeah, actually-
poverty can be correlated to.
So
culture.
a cultural problem gets co-opted by people that want to increase the amount of socialism. And if you ask a socialist what the solution is to any problem, they're always going to say, well, obviously more
more
socialism.
socialism.
Yeah, and so it's like, oh, well, you've got a crime problem. Oh, well, you don't have enough socialism. It's your problem.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got terrorism. Well, if you just increase the amount of socialism.
Well, I mean-
I mean, it sounds like I'm kidding, but I mean, literally,
No,
you ask
being
them,
completely
and it's
honest.
always.
There's also obviously correlation between crime and single motherhood and other kinds of factors which play into that as well. So
Yeah.
The poverty issue, I think poverty issue is mostly just used as an excuse because if it's only poverty, then the way to fix it is just welfare. And then there we go, no crime anymore, guys.
But some cultures do latch on. They pearl clutch poverty, and you're right. It is used as an excuse. But I mean it's how can I? What's a good metaphor for this? It's the guilty pleasure of certain cultures.
Well, it says the Fabians, you know, which is a particular breed of Marxist, like to say is never let a crisis go to waste. Right?
Yeah.
So any sort of disaster, any sort of problem that must be exploited for the ongoing deal, which is more of the same.
Right.
Mm.
Now Jeff is in the chat.
Yeah, apparently we've gotten very boring, guys. We need to up the ante. Come on,
Jeff
guys.
says there's a giant
Step up.
There's a giant flaming hole in this conversation. Yeah, Jeff, would you like to join us, man? I can send you the Hangout link if you want.
Wait,
No,
is
I'm not.
Conversation
you're
is too
implying that
boring
he's
for me.
flaming?
No. I'm saying that in earnest. I'd like to get Jeff in here if he wants to come in.
I'm gonna go to one of his streams and tell him how boring it is. As well. That's basic. I don't know.
He's,
So, like,
he
let's,
says he can hop in for a second here. I'll send him the link.
All right. So back on topic, we were like with this. As far as cultures go and like poverty rates, and I mean, again, this is going to be anecdotal, but you know, you might even claim this is just a socialist saying more socialism. And I don't know what the answer is, but like like I said, in Detroit you have a lot of white gangbangers, and then just across the river in my city, which has a decent black population, the crime rate is for the whole city is ridiculously low. Now, granted, I can't say whether or not the black communities have a higher crime rate.
Are you claiming there's more socialism
across the street than there is in Detroit.
There is.
For you, buddy.
There
There's
is.
a lot of socialism in Detroit.
This is true. There's a lot of socialism in Detroit. Actually, it's funny because Detroit was like a city of like 1.25 million when I was born, and today it's half that. It's 7,500,000 or 750,000.
Well, Detroit is a very good place if you want to get cardboard PCs, though. It's a very good place for that. It's amazing if you want to get cardboard PCs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cardboard PCs in Detroit. This is true.
Oh, well, you're the one who started razzing me on that more.
You damn straight I did.
Yeah, so now it's boiling back on you, buddy.
Oh,
Anyway,
well,
we're referring to something outside of the stream, so we can't do that.
I can handle the hate, darling.
Good. Well, then it won't stop.
Someone in the chat says, fuck Windsor, and I have to agree my city is shit. The only thing we have going for us is, like, low crime rate, but not much else.
Hey, Jeff.
What's going on, guys? Hi.
What's up, Jeff?
What's up, Jeff?
I'm fucking swamped as shit with work right now, but I just am I using the right goddamn microphone? Let me make sure. Yeah,
you sound fine, yeah.
Sounds good to me.
There's so I think that your guys' argument is pretty much on point. You know, it really is. It's like a cultural issue, and there's a poverty issue, but there's like this there's this historical connotation inside of it that I think I actually really want to do like an educational video on it, where that kind of explains like this singular difference in the black culture as compared to, like, say, you know, poor Hispanic cultures, even poor like Filipino cultures. It doesn't really matter. And the problem really, like, you know, some people are just going to be like, slavery, and that's not really what it was. What bred this entire basic culture, which has evolved into now, which is basically like a welfare state in some form or another, is the Reformation. And the Reformation is probably one of the absolute worst fucking things that happened in the country. And the expulsion of slaves into basically, you know, and we didn't have access to easy travel either, so you have these slaves that are freed, and now they're surrounded by a bunch of white people who are pissed because all of their fucking relatives died in a fucking war that was promoted as being about their freedom. And there was no welfare, there was no easy access to, you know, trying to get food, that sort of thing. And this is the powder keg that went into this whole long shitstorm.
Okay.
So that's like the basic thing you have to keep in mind, like, when you're trying to analyze like the historical connotations of black culture and why they act differently in their poor neighborhoods than other races.
I wanted to interject this because we didn't have reformations here in Brazil. The culture in the U.S. is basically the same here than there is in the U.S. Every problem that Will just mentioned, it happens here as well.
Really?
And we didn't have the kind of historical moment that you had there.
What was the climate like after slavery was abolished in Brazil?
Slavery was abolished right before monarchy ended. There was this monarch, it was a princess, which came into power for a short time. And she tried to abolish slavery for about 3 times, and she did it gradually. She first said that all sons of slaves were not slaves anymore. Then they abolished slavery for women and old people. Then they abolished slavery altogether. So it was a slow, gradual shift. And right after it happened, monarchy ended, and we declared the republic. And during that time, there was no social or wars whatsoever about slavery. There were slave insurgents who tried to enslave, but our main anti-slave hero here in our country was a slaver.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the Marxists don't want everyone to know that. They wanted them to be the national hero for anti-slaves, but don't remember that he has slaves. Okay?
Would you say so? You're saying like one of the national heroes was he was a freed slave?
Zumbi dos Palmares was a slave, and he freed himself, and he barricaded himself with other slaves and tried to end slavery. But he himself had slaves, and he commerced slaves. And not to mention, he was basically just like any African warlord that had his share of slaves, which are basically his own people, and he sold into slavery because reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So well, that is actually really, really interesting.
The day that we celebrate the Zumbi dos Palmares Day, which is that he fought against slavery, is basically a hoax because the guy was also a slave.
It's
Yeah,
like
wow.
it sounds like Guy Fawkes night.
Exactly.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Let's celebrate a giant piece of shit. Okay. Well, that's kind of interesting. So, and that's actually something I think I wanna look into if I'm gonna do a video on the Reformation. So, what would you say, historically speaking, after slavery was abolished in Brazil,
Okay.
which is probably a good thing that it was done gradually, honestly.
Yeah, it was done gradually. It was a good thing. It wasn't abolished on the day, by the day and the night. It wasn't done in one day. But even then, there were social and political repercussions, and there are some lines of thought that think that monarchy was ended in Brazil exactly because of that. And there are some line of thoughts that are studying that the political repercussion of abolishing slavery collapsed the entire monarchy system because they didn't want these kind of problems here in the country, because slavery was still an economical productivity factor in coffee and all of the plantations.
What would you say about the what would you say about basically like the capacity for freed African slaves in Brazil and entering the workforce and like the opportunities available to them like post-slavery? I mean,
no, there was none. There was no government program to try and get former slaves into the economical force, which is a free labor. Yeah, exactly. There was nothing that the government did to try and enforce that and try and help those people to go into the society that they belong to as a free laborer, for example. I think they didn't try that. In a personal
if I can interject real quick, sorry guys.
Sure.
You bring up I'm glad you guys brought up slavery, because relating back to the whole blacks in America and then Brazil, it's like slavery is not by any means, and I know you guys know this, by any means limited to just the blacks. Like it wasn't even the worst. There have been the very word slave comes from Slav. Right, yeah. So which were white people. So it's like, why isn't that all these other? Because slavery has been generally under the Muslim world.
Hold on a second. Don't tell Paul that. Don't tell Paul Slavs are white.
Yeah, don't tell. Exactly.
Well,
don't tell that. Yeah.
There is like at least somewhat of an intrinsic difference between like the enslavement of Slavic peoples. The Muslim-driven slave trade, which went on for, I think it was about 900 years, something like that. They were ridiculous.
Muslims still hold slaves today.
I know.
There are a variety of Muslim countries.
Yeah.
Can I tell the sole reason why slaves were majority black? The sole reason? Offer and demand. Black slaves were much cheaper than the white slaves in the Slav area. So basically, you had a lot of offer of slavery in Africa because the African warlords were just fighting so much between each other, and the trade routes. Yeah, exactly. The trade routes in the Atlantic were so crowded with the things that the U.S. and Brazil at the time were selling to Europe. So it was basically just go to Europe, grab all your shit, prepare for a trip, go to Africa, get some slaves, bring all of the things that you can sell to the U.S. or Brazil, then just sell the slaves in the U.S. or in Brazil, then get everything and sell to Europe, and repeat all together until you get a whole lot of money. And that's what they did.
I just have to interject here really quick. Someone in the chat says that Slavs are not white and they're the niggers of Europe. And I have to disagree. I think Italians are the niggers of Europe.
Oh shit! The gauntlet's been thrown down.
Well, they kind of are, to be honest. I agree.
I would have to say that, like, shit, I'm trying to get everybody's name. Ra. I think Ra pretty much nailed it, too. It was the right place, the right time. I mean, that sounds fucked up. The worst place, whatever. That created the transatlantic slave trade, the slave trade into the New World. There was a whole new 2 continents to basically conquer and take over, and they needed workers. So the organization of it was more than any slave trade had ever previously been established, and that's one of the reasons why it was so overt, and probably one of the reasons why it has such resonating impacts, in both North and South America.
Would you say that's the defining factor?
Let's not forget that the reason why we see it as a bad thing is also because the moral standards of our society pushed us in that direction. There were a lot of societies that were very comfortable with very high levels of slavery, and there was no moral outcry from those populations.
Absolutely.
And what's more, the black populations in the West, I mean, they didn't gain their freedom via some sort of slave rebellion or something. It was because their masters, effectively, or the ruling population, ethnic group, made this choice that it was a bad thing on their own.
Right.
For morality, not for economics, not just because they felt it was bad, and they suffered enormous physical consequences for doing that, and I think we're still suffering the consequences of doing it. I mean, we also could have shipped them all back to Africa, right? And we could have. We had that ability. I mean, we had the logistics.
Lincoln tried. He tried to.
Well, it was offered as an option if somebody wanted to go, but they wasn't compelled. And but we had the power to do that. We decided that it was morally wrong to do it. Right. And I mean, that's what a lot of this is. And a lot of times whenever we're talking about one of these complex issues, people say, well, you can't do that. Well, it's like, no. I can, but I won't.
Right.
So to the point that I was going to try and make, like the fact that there is the fact that the transatlantic slave trade and the things that were different about it, what makes, slavery was abolished, other than Saudi Arabia and certain other places in the Far East, for the most part throughout the 20th and 21st century, and there aren't like enormous amounts of communities that are doing this having the same disproportionate crime rate. So is it the transatlantic slave trade and what was unique about it that makes this situation different?
I think a lot of things added up. I think
you can't pinpoint into one single factor.
Right.
You can't do it. You can't do it. You can point the majority of reasons why it happened, and you can point 3 or 4 reasons why it happens, and then they majorly represent the biggest amount of the reason why they do it. But it's not one single factor. You can't just pinpoint it's one single factor. And I was just interjecting about the slave thing because the reformations didn't happen in South America, and we still have the same problem as U.S. I think what made U.S. unique was that it was at the same time a colony that was based on plantations and also as means for people to populate. So the North was made for populations to go and not to use as an economical advantage for the nations that were colonizing it. And so the North became really rich because it wasn't meant to make plantations. You weren't meant to make plantations in the North because there was no climate for that. You were meant simply to bring the settlers into there, and they just have to thrive for it and make their lives out of it. But that's basically what happened with Britain when they had the U.S. as a colony. And the South, instead, because of the climate, it became a plantation colony, and it was meant simply to plant and to bring commodities back to Britain. And when they had independence, they just used the North's more advanced structures of society, because basically what they did was they couldn't be bothered with planning things because it wasn't their thing. They were just being used as a colony for people to settle in and to live. And there were other things that were being done, industries and manufacturers and stuff.
So I would offer one more basic argument into it as well as to why we have this singularly different situation, especially like I said, I don't really know necessarily too much about Brazil, but in the United States.
Yeah, sure.
The United States has this very, very unique problem, as far as I've been able to tell. I could be wrong. That is largely our culture is so resistant to let things go. We have this bizarre idea of trying, and I mean it's a good idea. It's a good idea at its core of trying to be all-inclusive and accepting of other cultures, and I believe in it. I absolutely believe in it, but it has these weird resonating effects. If you look at what we attempted to do out of guilt for Native Americans as we pushed it out, rather than in a different situation where a country might take over the indigenous population, they were basically forced to acclimate or die, you know. And whereas we did start doing that, eventually we tried to have this situation where we could just simply let them have their culture as well. America has this desire to not necessarily want to let things go, or to have, like, the melting pot doesn't always melt, you know, and this makes America a breeding ground for different ideologies that can be really aggressive and have an us versus them mentality. It's probably one of the reasons why our race relations just keep going up and fucking down. The narratives, you know, stay the same.
Wait, real quick, because this is getting, one sec. One thing that is sort of interesting here is if you look at these problems and you look at where the problem started to get acute and where it wasn't acute, I think that that also demonstrates where something changed. Because you can see this in the crime stats. Prior to, I believe, 1962, the crime stats were relatively low. They started spiking up there. And the FBI actually has a really awesome breakdown on where the crime is. So, for example, outside of the urban areas, crime in the United States never changed. So suburbs or rural areas. If it was Mayberry in 1960, it was Mayberry in 1992, and it's Mayberry today. It's just based on the stats, it's the same. And the spike in stats, it was in urban areas. It was largely, you know, focusing on black gangs that were involved in narcotics to some extent. And I think that that really is a lot of it. It's those communities, it's those groups, and it's those behaviors. And if you really want to address it, you hit that.
Would you say that maybe, like, prior to, say, when the civil rights movement picked up, one of the reasons why the crime stats were so low is because the poor black communities were more afraid, more cowed by the notion that they're not equal, they're basically have lesser rights than, you know, whites? Would you say that might be an effect? I'm curious.
Well, why were the white areas that were poor not committing more crime? Why did the black areas, in particular, dive into this? That's an interesting thing, because if you just do it on a pure economics basis, there were a lot of areas that should have been high before and weren't and aren't now, and there are a lot of areas that you know, if we go on, well, these people are not white. Well, I mean, you can't. You don't even have correlation, much less causation.
Well, I mean, that's a bit difficult, though, to quantify. I mean, I lived in some of the worst neighborhoods in I mean, this is going to be anecdotal, but this is just, like, from my perspective, because I do know the stats, and, you know, I understand them here and there, and these are usually very specific cities that they're looking at. But if we were to isolate a city and take something like Portland, Oregon, which is a pretty goddamn big city, the racial demographics of it are pretty damn white people, fuck tons of white people. And in the poorest neighborhoods, you know, the crime rate is still out of fucking control. Heroin, methamphetamines, gangs. Shit, they got Russian gangs there, which is the strangest fucking thing. Those people are freaky. But the crime rate is still extremely fucking high. Now, it comes down to basically the question, you have to ask yourself the question of, like, you know, what is the component that makes the crime happen? You know, and I could say that, and I realize it might be making an excuse, I could say that the culture, like Mort was saying, that comes out of these types of situations, how these people live, the way they're brought up, leads to these types of behaviors. But I can't necessarily say, I could say that the majority of it probably happens because of a historical connotation that built a culture. But crime culture in and of itself is not really contingent upon those factors necessarily. You know, poverty breeds crime. It just does. I mean, it does.
Not always.
Now,
wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. No, it doesn't. Not necessarily. Look, I mean, look, there's a lot of areas that are very poor that have very low crime.
Poor wealth distribution breeds crime. when you have the richest being very rich and the poor being very poor, it breeds crime. But when everyone is poor, when everyone is in a much closer wealth pattern, as
Even
in
then
the
it's
richer, the richest ones and the richest people and the poorest people have such a small difference, the crime is much much more.
Not even that, because there are countries that are where pretty much everybody is poor, and the crime is very high. I mean,
Well,
so that
we can't
doesn't
talk
even
about other
necessarily
countries.
follow.
I mean,
Which
that's
country?
an entirely different culture altogether.
Yes.
Anything that's outside of the one
Well,
country.
fine.
Which country?
You know.
Well, lots of look. You want to look at, say, Somalia? I mean, whatever. I mean, there's countries that are very poor. I could go to a zillion different countries in Africa where
other
people are very
factors
poor.
come in. Other
Sure,
factors
right. No, I mean, there's always going to be another factor, though. But the point is that why fixate on the poverty when it isn't prescriptive on the behavior?
Well, speaking purely purely from the United States of America perspective, there is not one major urban center rife with poverty that doesn't have a high crime rate.
Boom. Urban.
Yeah, urban. Urban doesn't
Okay,
mean black.
whoa. No,
Urban
no.
means urban. Yeah,
Okay,
urban
but
means in the city.
why focus on the poverty and not on the urbanness?
Well, I
Maybe
think it's
maybe it's the
contingent on each
population
other.
density that
I
is
would-
also a big factor there.
I would say that there is one exception to that, and we've seen that with drug distribution. Many of with meth, specifically drug production, actually with methamphetamines, people who chose to produce methamphetamines usually went out to suburban and rural areas.
Oh yeah,
And then brought high crime to those particular areas. So
that's a good point. Yeah.
you know, that argument can be a little that might be an exception. That very well might be an exception. However,
I think it's a causal factor that's important. I think it's absolutely a causal factor that's important. And there's also, you could get into who are the people who do these devastating drugs like heroin, methamphetamine, what kind of economic status they're in too. Like it's an extremely complex issue to try and trace back why these come from. But I don't know.
Do you think there's something of an Al Capone thing going on here? Because one thing which I don't know. Are there any defenders of the drug war left? Are any of them left? I think we won. I think we won the Great Drug War, and the people that were supporting it lost. Because it's like I know it's still the law, but I think everyone understands that it just created like a fucking James Cagney situation.
Thanks,
And
Nancy Reagan. Jesus Christ.
Everyone's running around. Well, I mean, I think it started with Nixon, but
right.
Yeah, but
well, are there any supporters of the ATFE here anymore? I mean, it's essentially the same exact thing.
Oh well, there are a lot of people that hate.
Well, the drug wars was done so Nixon could shit on hippies, basically.
Yeah.
It was a good idea, though.
Mm-hmm.
The hippies
We gotta
need
put our
shitting
foot
on.
down with these hippies. Anyway, I don't know. I really enjoyed talking to you guys. I got to get back out and watch my kiddo. I just thought I'd hopefully I gave some more fun shit.
Thanks for joining.
Sure.
Thanks for
All
coming in,
right, you filled the
Thanks for
gaping
joining,
hole
dude.
in our discussion. Thank you.
I live to fill your big
Good at
gaping
filling
hole.
holes. You want to fill my hole?
They weep. They weep for you.
Let me see if I can do my best
coming,
prop. Big white throbbing lubed thing.
Well,
So, if
There
that
you
guy's
go.
in my country, I'm going to deport him. Just saying.
yeah, he has pretty natty dreads. That's pretty cool.
All right,
Yeah,
let's see
any
here.
white person that has Tourette's get deported. No, I'm just kidding.
Aw.
No.
Yeah, but I mean, again, if you look at the FBI stats, you'll see that it correlates really strongly with the drugs. The crime does.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at the crime stats prior to the drug war, it was Mayberry, and it's only just now starting to calm down, which I'm not entirely sure why. Every federal institution will say, "Well, we did it," but they'll do that when the sun rises.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
Of course they did.
I mean, Guinness, are you still here?
Yeah, Linda, we don't have to wrap up, but
No, I know, but I was going to mention something. I was very pleased that you used the word the blacks, because you're sort of taking Trump's way of
The
speaking.
blacks.
The Hispanics, the blacks.
That is such a baby boomer New York way of describing
the blacks.
A black person. Because that's literally how they do it. I mean, you don't see people. If you talk to, say, a 50-year-old, 60-year-old guy in L.A., they're not going to refer to the blacks. It's just that term wouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's just odd.
So guys, I was thinking we were going to wrap it up in 10-20 minutes because usually a 2-hour stream is more watchable. What do you guys want to do? You want to keep going?
I don't care.
Well, you guys, did you want?
Yeah, I'm gonna hop on.
I mean, did anyone
Why do
have
we
a?
have to have watchable streams, Eric?
Well, there's also that.
Why
but
does it
yeah,
have to be watchable?
yeah. What we haven't. We've never had a watchable stream. What are you talking
fuck
about?
it then. We'll just go until all the viewers die.
But
Yeah,
what
perfect.
but wait a minute. So okay, but did we want to go anywhere else with this discussion? Like, did we have anywhere we want to go, or is it just going to turn into cancer?
Well, I mean, that was kind of the point for it to eventually turn into cancer. I didn't say that at the beginning. So. So cancer away if you want. I don't care.
Well, I don't know what we guys are discussing about. I had to do something, but so.
Well, we were talking about the interactions between various measurable statistical variables and
poverty,
cultural cohesion and sort of ethnic melting pots and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, my answer to everything is it's obviously the Marxists and it's obviously the welfare. And it's inexplicable to me that anyone would just go anywhere beyond that. It's just like, oh, that's what it is.
So actually,
I'm quite amazed by
that's just me, though.
I'm quite amazed by the melting pot meme, because the melting pot meme was not really created outside of the 20th century. In the 19th century, there was no reference to the melting pot and stuff like that. So I don't know why you Americans always consider yourself to be a melting pot. Well, for 100 years, you guys were basically for a country for white Europeans and black slaves.
No. That was also a melting pot, though. It's just different definitions of what you're melting.
Sure.
Right?
No, also, sorry, but I have to
so for
mention
example,
this,
if you have a bunch of English colonists, for example, and suddenly you've got all these Degas showing up, that requires a certain amount of melting. Or, oh my God, there are fucking French people everywhere. Jesus fucking Christ, hide the women.
Wait, so are you saying that America was a melting pot of European cultures?
Initially, yeah, for a long time, because what you had was most of the original colonies. I mean, not all the original colonies were English, right?
No, yeah, sure.
So we had Dutch more than we had Dutch and French colonies in there, and even So that required a certain amount of how am I going to interact with all these Dutch people? I mean, you've talked to Dutch people before. Like,
they're those are the kind of people you kind of.
Can you imagine living next to Ad? Like he was just your neighbor.
Yeah, that would be kind of amazing.
No.
But I don't know. It's because the melting pot is used as a justification to import people from radically different culture than the European.
Well,
the European cultures are way
but it wasn't.
to the Asian
It wasn't
cultures.
then, though. It wasn't then, though.
No, no. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the melting pot meme is being applied to cultures.
To multiculturalism, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So see, okay. So this gets back to what I was talking about with morality. There's a huge distinction between the melting pot concept and what is it? Jesus Christ! What do they call this? My brain cells are dying. It's the oh, you're just gonna let me just hang out here? Just
everybody just let Will die.
All right.
Yeah, I want to embarrass you.
No. You're so formidable. Let it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's fine. But the God, what is it? The whole cultural. Well, yeah, no, it's like I'm having a stroke. But no, this is what a stroke sounds like. So it's that thing where you have all the different cultures all in one place, and they're all like individual.
Yeah, multiculturalism.
Multiculturalism. There you go. Yeah. There. Thank you for pulling me out of my stroke. But that's a distinction between the melting pot and multiculturalism. Is right. That in one of them there's a notion of conforming to the moral norms of the society, and in the other there isn't. And they can't be conflated. They're entirely different concepts.
Mm-hmm. No, right, but I just see melting pot being used as a justification for
Sure.
multiculturalism.
Well, it gets conflated.
And also, I would have to note that it is also a word that was only popularized in the 20th century by a specific person of a specific ethnicity. But I'm going to shut up there.
Yeah. All right, were you going to just say ethnicity?
Ethnicity, and it kind of echoes for some reason. I don't know why it echoes.
Yeah, okay.
But okay, what I'm saying is that the melting pot was invented by a guy named Israel Zangwill, who was a Jew. That's the only thing.
Nice. His name was literally Israel.
Yeah, his name was Israel. He was known as a Zionist. But anyway, sorry.
Really? That's shocking to me.
Yeah, I know, right? His name is Israel. What a surprise.
Yeah.
But that guy invented a play called The Melting Pot, and it was about America importing cultures and integrating them into their society, basically.
Well, sure. I mean, okay.
But it was mostly about European cultures, but not about Africans or Asians. Well, it was just about the Europeans that you guys.
Yeah, but okay, all right. So in Los Angeles, and again, I can't speak to every other place in the world. There are different cultural groups that get along great, and there are different cultural groups that just don't. It's not just a white European thing. I mean, I think the Chinese and the Japanese and the Koreans and the Vietnamese are generally pretty good.
No, I'm not necessarily saying it's only white Europeans, but I'm just saying that the melting pot is used as a justification to bring in muzzies, basically.
Well, yeah. If you're talking about muzzies, though, okay, and that's the problem with the muzzies, is that they have a completely incompatible moral context. I mean, for one thing, they want to apply their stupid Sharia law, which stands in complete I mean, they don't work well anywhere else in the world. I mean, this is one of the things that's so obnoxious about this notion that it's just the intolerance of name the European country or the United States or whatever. That prevents the Muslims from getting along there. They don't get along with anybody. There's not a single cultural group that isn't Islamic that gets along well with Muslims. There isn't one.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing that I find interesting is that it seems like pretty much any other culture is fairly, besides Islam, is fairly compatible with Western culture. Islam, it's not that anybody is the problem except for Islam.
Generally, yeah.
This is why it doesn't make any sense.
Like honestly, I'm at the point where I almost feel like saying if Islam as a concept, if Islam as a culture and a belief system no longer existed, everyone else in the world would be better off.
This is why I don't really understand when people say, like, I mean, I get why they're using it, but like, how can you be racist? It's not like we have any problem with Jains. Jains aren't doing shit to us.
Or Zoroastrians, or
like. But they're not all fucking white, predominantly.
No, actually, the best trait is xenophobia, because that's like it's irrational fear of the unknown. But it's more like rational fear of the known. That's mostly what people in Europe have. We know that Islam doesn't integrate. We know it's violent, and we don't want to have it. But they say, no, you don't know Islam. Oh, you should go to a mosque once, Lenny, and you'll learn tolerance. You're so intolerant, Lenny. It's like, okay, whatever.
Maybe if I defenestrate a few.
Well, actually, we had to go to a mosque. When I was in state school, we had to go to a mosque to pray there to see how the cultures were going to match with ours and shit like that. It was embarrassing, to be honest. But anyway,
why was it embarrassing?
Because like you were forced to pray with the Muslims, and it was like
you were forced to pray with them.
Yeah, I was forced. I had to pray with muzzies in my fucking state school education.
Oh God.
Well, don't worry though. Don't worry.
Did they force you to go to a Jewish temple and pray?
No.
Really, because there are more Jews in Antwerp.
Better shit of Jews. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't have to pray with them, huh?
No, because the problem is the Jews we have are Orthodox Jews, which if you come in the neighborhood with them, they won't even look at you. Like they wouldn't want anyone to come into your.
Unlike that part of Brussels where they'll just.
Well, dirty Gentiles, remember that.
Well, right, yeah. But if you go into the Muslim area of Brussels, they'll fucking stab you. So what's the difference?
Yeah, my favorite part was when the Guardian went down to Molenbeek and they were like, "Oh, guys, we're gonna show that the reason that these people are so violent is because of Belgian racism and because of not enough welfare." The journalist went there, and then she realized that she was not welcome, and she got attacked by the people she wanted to interview. She's like, "Oh, shit." the people who are supposedly intolerant because of the Belgian whites oppressing them are actually attacking me now. It's nonsense. They I mean, look, it's awful, and like I don't even know what we have a Ministry of Culture, but we have a Ministry of Culture, and they have literally said in their reports that there are too many white people in Belgium. We need less white people, and they actually cut off grants to certain theaters that had too many white people in their performances. It was like, what? It's just like, this is where we're going to in Europe.
Well, that's
fucking hilarious.
That's why you shouldn't have a Ministry of Culture.
And it's even better. It's even better because the Belgians want to follow.
Who would trust the government? Who would trust the government? The fucking government. Imagine the DMV in charge of culture and art.
That would be amazing.
That's what it is. That's what a Ministry of Culture is.
I mean, we also the French did something similar, and so did the. So are we trying to do? So we are also trying to get like an intercultural, not a breed. Well, the Green Party wants a breeding center for intercultural exchange, but the EU in France, like Sarkozy said, we have to make sure that the native population breeds with the Muslims, so we get more tolerance and stuff like that. That's what's going on in Europe. It's just like,
well, it's not your tolerance; it's the problem.
The people that are invading us, we have to make.
They're intolerant of you, though. Is the thing. It's the other way around. I mean, if they tried this sort of shit in one of their countries, right, and they were a different ethnic group, they'd just get cut apart. I mean, do you think the Saudis would put up with this shit for 5 seconds?
No, definitely.
No, they'd just slice and dice.
Well, yeah, I mean that's exactly right. Is that it isn't by any means tolerance of these other cultures or ethnic groups. It's intolerance towards their own host culture that is the problem here. They are actively trying to destroy their own host culture by doing this kind of thing.
Well, I mean, so Lenny, if you just became more like North Africa, so that all the violence would go away. Oh wait, no, it wouldn't, because North Africa's violent as shit.
No, actually, it's not even North Africa. The place, apparently Belgium is very keen upon importing millions of pirates, aka Somalis.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so wait, you are actually going to become a country of neoliberals then?
Yeah, we're going to be libertarian paradise.
All libertarians, a libertarian paradise of Belgium. Excellent.
Well, no, actually, no, you're right. It's actually mostly Morocco that we take a lot of our immigrants from. But Somalia is very high on that spot as well. And as far as I can tell, every Somali person I've known has stabbed someone in Belgium. I don't know why. I don't know. They have a natural tendency to be a pirate for some reason.
So what you're saying is hashtag nuke Somalia.
No, what I'm actually saying is hashtag back to Africa.
Can anyone do a impersonation of that Futurama robot that just stabs people?
I don't know.
It's like, ha ha!
Basically, I'm pretty sure that the recent immigration has increased the amount of machete sales, so I can't really complain about machete sales.
Oh yeah, you need to license those better.
No, you know what's amusing? They recently banned, I don't remember which country, some European country, they banned zombie knives because they were too intricate. Despite the fact that there's like a whole list of crazy machetes that are totally not banned.
It's literally fucking illegal to have pepper spray in my country as a citizen. And we have many cases where a woman had pepper spray illegally and used it to defend off a rapist. And it's like, haha, we're going to sue you for illegal possession of a firearm. It's like, this is pepper spray. The rapist almost tried to rape me. I use it as self-defense. And it's like, no, we're going to sue the shit out of you.
You've seen that great video. Was that real? Have we subsequently figured this out? Whether that
force video,
the one, the force one, the one where you just like, hold your hand up and you go stop. Was that real or was that?
Yeah, that was real. It was a real video. It was a real, non-ironic video.
So guys, getting back sort of onto a little bit of a topic. Somebody in the chat brings up says, I hope we talk about birth rates. So, and that Muslims poop babies or children. So that's true. What about the fact that the Muslims are, at this point, a lot of them because not all of them are going the full jihadi route of taking over the nation. A lot of them are covertly or even overtly interested in changing the population of Europe through breeding and basically conquering through wives and just having more wives and more children.
Well, basically, there was a guy, the leader of Sharia for Europe, who was a Belgian, and Belgian is actually, he's not a Belgian, he was a fucking Arab. Sorry, not Arab, he was a Muslim, so not a Belgian, but anyway. And his name, I forgot his name, but it was like something like Mohammed, blah, 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 whatever. And he said specifically that they were going to conquer Europe via a birth rate. He was like, we're going to start breeding you Belgians. Haha, we're going to have way more children. And our children are going to have way more children. He was laughing while he was saying that.
At the risk of once again being the crazy guy who just won't fucking let it go, I'll just point out that it is actually just the welfare again. Because absent the welfare, they wouldn't be able to have these kids. Because, I mean, how many of these motherfuckers can actually hold a job down? Right?
Well, I mean, the guy was the leader of a terrorist organization, so he had some money.
Fine, from Saudi Arabia or something.
Yeah,
but,
basically.
But no, but the vast majority of these people, it's like they're being paid. Their families, this whole structure, is being supplied by the welfare state. Absent that, they wouldn't. And the more fucking kids they pop out, because it's like a fucking feedback loop. The more kids they pop out, the more welfare they get. It's like you want to be cucked. I mean, it's
somebody in the chat mentions this. The current European birth rate is below 2, which means that trend. He says if the trend continues, that the economies will collapse.
No, the welfare system will collapse.
No. See, here's the thing. Okay, so this is something you hear from a lot of people, where it's like, oh, your birth rates are too low. So, well, not really, because if you look at the populations of a lot of these countries, say like 100 years ago, they had way lower populations. And no one in those countries felt that they were underpopulated. They were like, wow, look at how, there's nobody here in Europe 100 years ago. Do you need to have this many people? Is it necessary? You could say, well, maybe the economy would be smaller. Well, maybe it would be. But on a per capita basis, would you be unhappy? No. So why is it like a dick measuring contest? Like you're like, oh fuck, China has a bigger economy than me. Sure, rub faster. It doesn't matter. Who cares?
No, I agree.
It's like, and it's not going to go to 0. I mean, that's the other thing. Where it's like, oh, this trend continues. There'll just be two guys sitting there. It's like, no, it's going to drop down. A lot of this is because of, and this is something that is frequently missed, and you can see this in Japan really clearly. It's largely a consequence of urbanization. You pack people really tightly into these cities, and they don't want to have kids. It's like, would you want to have a family if you were living in a fucking coffin apartment in Tokyo?
It's not just that, Will. It's the fact that they work the people there. What is the average work day in Japan as well?
Sure.
It's 14, 16 hours. Can you really raise a family on that?
Yeah, okay, wait a minute. There are people that live in rural and suburban areas that also work like fucking dogs, but they have the birth rates in rural and suburban areas is dramatically higher. So, for example, if you look at Italy or Greece or Germany or Denmark or Japan, any of these places, and you say, okay, the birth rate nationally is whatever. But if you break it down by population density, what you find is that the cities have a replacement rate way below the replacement rate. But the suburban areas are basically break even. And the rural areas have a little bit above. So why are we... and we literally subsidize everybody to live this way. It's stupid. It's like you can't actually afford to, on your own paycheck, or at least most of the people that live in these cities, or a large portion of them, can't actually afford to live in these cities. You go to New York, you go to Chicago, Los Angeles, whatever. There's an enormous number of people that are effectively on overt or subtle housing subsidies. So, for example, there's HUD, from the government, where people are still paying rent, but they're paying a lower rent because basically the landlord was given money, and as a condition of being given some money to build the housing project, he charges a lower rent. And then there's overt stuff, like there's rent control, where it's like, well, the renter cannot charge over X dollars. And then it goes beyond that. There's some people, it's like, well, you're poor, so I will just pay your rent. Well, why are you giving people money to live in places where they can't find a job? Mm-hmm. It's dumb. And then they don't have kids. And it's just this whole fucking cycle of stupidity. And Japan again is a great example of, because it's a monoculture, right? It removes this whole notion of of cultural diversity from the situation because they don't have any cultural diversity.
Right.
There are these ghost towns in Japan where no one lives, and these little villages are beautiful. They're like fucking astounding. They've got these little rivers that are flowing through them. They've got these homes that are like 100-year-old, hand carved wood, and the whole fucking town is abandoned. There's nobody that lives there, and people will say, well, it's because they can't find work. Well, they could find work if you stop subsidizing people to live in Tokyo. They'd live somewhere up where they could afford to live, and then the work would also come to them. I mean, it's not like the companies that offer jobs in whatever place can only offer the job there. They can offer it anywhere. It's just they're going to try and follow where it's efficient to do whatever they're doing.
Of course.
And but anyway, it's like everybody fixates on poverty, or they fixate on race, and they don't understand that cities have never. And this is, you can go back into medieval times, particularly like people think of medieval Europe like it was completely primitive. There were actually a couple places where they kept really good records, and in London, I believe, they've got very detailed records, and London has never had a sustainable population. It never has, ever. It is always it survived on importing people from the countryside to live there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So people are born out there, and then they move to the city, make their fortune. And if they stay in the city, well, they're probably not going to have as many kids as they would have if they'd lived out in the countryside. For better or ill, that's just kind of how it is.
Right. I mean, I could also bet that also, at least in rural areas, probably corresponds to, I suppose, higher amounts of marriages compared to in the city. I'm not sure if that's true.
Sure. Well, if you've got a farm or a big piece of property, and a proper household out there, it's more conducive to forming some kids. I mean, you could see yourself raising a family out there, but packed into some tiny little apartment in New York or whatever, they're not going to want to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And what do people in New York do when they want to have a family? I mean, half the time they go, well, time to move out to the suburbs.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it's completely ignored.
So in order to kind of pull it back to the Muslim thingy, so the European countries have had massive urbanization in the last decades, so that would probably explain part of the decline in birth rate. There's also obviously I mean, it would be ridiculous not to say that the birth control didn't have any effect on the birth rate. So that was also an invention that happened in the West and spread quite quickly. But I mean, the Muslims, they come from regions where there is. I'm not sure if the Muslim regions have much birth control, but they also have different cultural standards. They are kind of expected by Islam, by the religion, to have a lot of children, and so. There is evidence that Muslim immigrants who, for a couple of generations, stay in Europe have kind of come to the same level of the same birth rate as the native Europeans. But there's always a couple of generations that have to go before they sort of reach the same birth rate as the natives. So the earlier generations will have way more babies than the Europeans. Like, we're talking about like a lot of my Muslim, well, not friends, but I went to school with a lot of Muslims, and they had like 7 or 8 siblings, and that were just like because they were recent immigrants, and they have like families of 8 or 9 people, 8 or 9 children, and so. That's not something that native Belgians, or sorry, not Belgians, but native Europeans in general do anymore. Some families might have more children.
Okay, whoa, so what that's really interesting. Stop. Anymore. That's really interesting, though. Why did it stop? Because, okay, one of my ancestors came from Europe. She was, part of the reason she came to the United States was that she came from a huge family. Like, I think she had like 12 brothers and sisters or something, right? Like her mom's vagina was a fucking assembly line. And so why did the birth rate decline that way? I mean, people talk about the birth rate going down, but they don't focus on why. They just say, well, let's just bring a whole bunch of people from somewhere else. Like, they're not focusing on why it went down.
Well, yeah, but that's what we're arguing. I mean, like you said, urbanization. I would also say definitely the presence of birth control. Perhaps changing cultural norms. Those kind of things can all bring down a birth rate. I would say, especially in the West.
Okay, well, but the cultural norms, is there any taboo? Is there any cultural taboo against having a lot of kids? I don't think there is.
No, not necessarily. But I mean, there has been definitely there has been a change in the. I mean, there's been more of acceptance of childless families, I would say, than it used to be. I mean, I don't think in the past that it was very well looked upon to be childless, I suppose, or have a family and then not produce offspring. But that definitely did change, I would say. I don't know, but I mean, it's a lot of things. I would not say it's only urbanization, because I think the birth control definitely had an effect on that as well. I don't know, perhaps that had no effect, but it would seem ridiculous to me that something that could regulate the reproductive system would not have an effect on the birth rate.
Well, sure, I think that's an element, but keep in mind that what birth control does is it permits women to decide whether or not they want to be pregnant. So the only pregnancies you would gain by removing that would be unwanted pregnancies. And I don't necessarily think that is in your interest if what you want is, the family life and all that kind of stuff.
But I'm not necessarily suggesting that has to be any action taken against the birth control. I'm simply saying that birth control probably had an effect on the birth rate.
Oh, sure.
I'm not saying there's any action we have to take against birth control. I'm just saying birth control probably had an influence on the birth rate.
Oh no, I'm sure it would have had to have.
Yeah,
it would have had to.
So that's pretty much the only thing I'm saying. I'm not necessarily saying anything else.
Right.
So yeah, so I think urbanization, I agree there as well. It seems quite obvious. I mean, obviously anecdotal, but it's in my experience as well. It's bigger families are always from rural areas. I come from a family of
small families. Whereas small families, or childless, men and women, right, are very common in urban areas, and yet these people that go on and on about, this or that, social problem because there aren't enough kids, they never focus on urbanization. If anything, they say, well, we need more urbanization because reasons.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
just completely insane.
It's something that that's something that they're kind of saying right now in my country. The new. They call him the government architect, I suppose. It was like, we need to get all the people out of the rural areas and into the city.
Okay, so here's a question. Why?
Why people want to do that, or?
Yeah, well, no. Why does the government want to do it?
I
mean, I know we're entering into like Alex Jones territory here, where we start speculating, right? Because who can say? But at the same time, it's useful to sit there and say, okay, who benefits? Because it could just be that everyone's just being stupid. That's possible. But it could also be that some people are being clever and that this suits some interests. So who profits? I mean, I have my own theories, as I do, as everyone does. But like, does anyone have a theory as to why social planners would want to concentrate population in the cities, despite the fact that it seems to be damaging certain interests, say in lowering population, that anyone has a problem with that? I mean, whatever. I mean, does the chat have an idea?
Well, fellas, I'm gonna hop off here and do some smiting. I swear too much.
I'm gonna be.
Yeah,
I
know.
Well, just mute yourself.
I mean, guys, just gonna play games. Wow,
absolutely.
Really
you don't want to join us. That's fine.
Pat is in the chat.
Pat is.
So Pat is saying that it's easy to control people in a dense area or exterminate them. Well, that's a possibility. I mean, I think there are. It's quite obvious to me that the people currently in power have a vested interest in either keeping that power or increasing it. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was anything to do with power.
So have you guys watched sort of these? This sort of argues, I guess, to what oppressive straight white male Christian is saying. There is a political distinction between the way that cities are ruled as opposed to rural areas are ruled.
Right.
Right. Rural areas tend to be more democratic. They're smaller. People tend to know each other. And there's less indirect democracy. There's more direct democracy because in the cities you're always being represented by somebody. You know, you're never, the mayor doesn't know who the fuck you are, right?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It seems there's a higher what you might call like.
Civic participation.
Like social capital, civic participation, exactly.
Yeah. Do you see how I helped you out there and I didn't just let you die like some people have let?
Well, no, but I was actually going to say social capital, but civic duty is the same. But it's basically if you live in a rural area, you can sort of rely on your neighbors to, and vice versa. There's sort of more of a closer contact.
Right, exactly. Your neighbor has a problem. You're going to go over and you're going to help him out in a rural area. Whereas in a city, you don't know the people in your own building, much less somebody a block away.
No, exactly. It's exactly. So there's way more.
And you don't like any of the people in your own building. So like in a suburban area, they've got like block parties and stuff. You know, where everybody will come together and have a barbecue. But in a big city, you don't want to even acknowledge that the other people in your building, just your building, even are alive, you know, because the only thing that they're going to do is play saxophone on a Sunday afternoon and annoy the shit out of you. That's all they do. They buy parrots and start screaming at 2 a.m.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't necessarily.
They buy a prostitute, and all you hear against one of your doors or one of your walls all night is bum, 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 bum.
I mean, also,
like
there's also something else that happens in rural areas. I mean, if you go to rural cities, there is practically, you might call like not necessarily an invisible contract, but basically, I think in America especially, there are rural areas where basically everyone in the city everyone in the village owns a gun, and they know that, and they simply sort of look out for each other if there's something they. Well,
and the crime stats in the rural and suburban areas never budge.
Radically different.
You know, when the crime stats started spiking in the 1960s, it was concentrated in the urban areas. It didn't happen anywhere else. And you can do the same thing with the education stats, the life expectancy stats. I mean, just go down the list. I mean, it's all shit in the cities. And yet they keep saying, "Oh yeah, we got to keep living this way." And look, I like living in cities too because it's not. There's good things about it, but that doesn't mean there aren't bad things. And if there's a problem with the city, maybe we need to address that.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah, that's definitely something interesting, I suppose. But it seems that let's see, is anyone actually here except me and Will? Because everyone else is muted except me and you.
I don't know, man. Some of us can multitask, and some of us can't.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah. Wow. Now we're on a dead end because literally we're the only two that aren't muted.
Well, maybe Eric was right. It just needed to get.
No. No. But Eric said that he was gonna make food. But anyway.
There you go.
So is Edgy still here?
I suspect not. He hasn't said anything in a long time.
Probably got to smoke. Anyway, let's see if the chat.
Well, is there anybody? Yeah, is there anybody in the chat that wants to join us? I mean,
chat. Tell us what we have to talk about.
Yeah. Do you want to?
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna ask.
Let's talk about this Mercury and how he's a complete shithead.
No. So Big Bad Juju is asking that we have to ask a chat for wisdom. So I'm gonna ask you chat for wisdom. What do you want to know? Come on.
Get him, Will.
Give me stuff.
Nope.
Time
is not right. I'm not Mercury. I'm not stupid.
But this is not going to turn into a Smite stream, so I'm going to have to do something.
Oh, come on.
Okay, the best ways to gas people. That's a question.
Windex and bleach.
Yeah, definitely some bleach breath mints. Thanks, chat.
No, the chat is being amazing. Oh, was Harambe a god? No, Harambe was a piece of shit.
There's actually a god in Smite that kind of looks like Harambe.
That's a little squeaky.
Is Germany going to war? No, they're not going to go to war. They're going to shoot themselves in the face.
Oh, Will, why did you pop that so?
Putin is superior to Erdogan, definitely.
Well, I mean, that's because Russia is superior to Turkey.
Well, Russia is superior to Turkey, I agree there. Turkey is basically
here's the thing.
Collapsing internally.
Here's one of the things that's funny about Turkey is that Turkey thinks that they're actually worth anything, and they don't appreciate that they've basically been living at the tape of the Western world ever since they got their asses handed to them in World War I. I mean, you know that new Turkish fighter that everyone's concerned with? Or no, they don't have one. Okay. What about the new Turkish cruise missile? Oh no, they don't have one of those.
Yeah,
so,
no.
What about?
But, I mean,
no, they got nothing.
So, are socialism and fascism sister ideologies, and why? What do you mean sister? I mean, there's. Like, fascism has also inherently a distrust of capitalism built in it.
I'm gonna be really obnoxious here and say define socialism and capitalism.
Yeah. Okay,
and like all that, like, because here's the thing is everyone has different definitions of these things, and depending on your definition, you know, it's the answers change. So
right, yeah, definitely.
Patchling. Totally socialism is buying dairy farmers spoiled milk.
No,
I would agree.
No,
I would agree. That's the definition. There we go.
No, actually, socialism is owning the Sahara Desert and then having a shortage of sand. That's what socialism is. Basically. No, but let's see. Is there no definition here? Come on.
I mean, we can come up with definitions.
I'm sure people are taking their time.
Yeah. Okay. So,
well, I mean, I don't know. I think some of them are actually just trying to find some way that they can answer in the form of a dank meme.
Yeah, basically, that's what they're doing. I mean, look.
Yeah, you guys are so edgy. Just answer the fucking question, Melvin. Jesus fucking Christ.
I mean, basically, so Putin is definitely superior to Mr. Erdogan. Anyway, okay, so the burkini question. Do you really want them see them taking it off? Is that a question as regards to? I don't know. I don't really care about the burkini. It seems to me that it's kind of a trolly way to annoy Muslims, so I would kind of want to do it just to annoy them, but I don't know. It's mostly just trying to annoy them. I don't really care. I don't really want the government to set policy on clothing, but if it's to annoy the Muslims, then I can kind of forgive it.
Alright, I have a question. Why don't the Europeans just rape the Muslim ladies?
Because we can't see their shapes and curves because they're all in.
It doesn't matter. You're in a war now, so you gotta just rape no matter what, dude.
Well, I mean, as I was showing
Lenny
earlier,
rape for rape.
Birthing chambers are coming.
Well, yeah, the interracial birth. They actually said intercultural birthing rooms.
No, it's going to be the wombs of the future will be robot wombs.
That's so fucking such a MGTOW thing to say. Fucking
no, it's not a MGTOW thing to say. I am robots going their own way.
Okay, by the way, no. There's a general PSA. MGTOWs are the Marxists of the dating game. Like, oh, it's so unfair. I'm not even gonna play anymore. Give me shit, please. That's basically what the MGTOWs are. Anyway, okay, Tiger Tank or a Hetzer?
Is this a War Thunder question?
I don't know.
People would ask these questions. It's always fucking War Thunder. They don't know anything about World War II. They don't care. It's just like, War Thunder.
Let's see. Okay, so Chad, can you give us non-trolly questions? Or actually, give us more trolly questions. Never mind. Rapier or katana? That's a good question. Definitely the rapier.
I'm gonna have to go broadsword.
Well, rapier is a D8.
Exactly, and a katana is a
D6.
Yeah, exactly. Rapier wins.
Katana's finesse.
Race mixing isn't race treason. Is race mixing race treason? Oh, that's good.
Remind me where I took an oath to my race. Also, I hate way too many white people to ever be loyal to white people.
Aww.
Too many white people I hate.
It's fine. It's fine. All the Guillermos from the Mexican gangs will treat you very well.
Indoctrinated since age 0.
So Stalin or your mom? I mean, what is that even a question?
Like, I think it's like, who would you rather fuck, Stalin or your mom? The answer to that is always Stalin.
It's just a tip game when you're fucking a bro.
Not if you say no homo first.
It's kind of degenerate.
Well, degenerate maybe, but not gay.
Well, Well, it comes to race mixing as race reason. I mean, I would say race mixing is race reason if you have sex with an aboriginal. Then I would probably.
Well, no, that's unfortunately that's species.
I have a question.
That's species reason.
Yeah, or bestiality maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Has everybody been red pilled on? Unfortunately, the abo situation. It's really.
It's really
like
bad.
it's existentially painful for me.
So better post-apocalyptic world, Fallout or Wasteland?
Well, wait. Are we talking about Interplay Fallout, or are we talking about Bethesda Fallout?
Let's just say Interplay. Let's say Interplay.
Well, Interplay Fallout was pretty good, so I'd have to go with Interplay Fallout.
Okay.
Oh,
Bethesda can suck a hairy dick, though.
But Bethesda Fallout, yeah, okay. So, are there any interesting questions instead of... No, actually, I think you're going to keep asking questions. A hippo or a rhino?
Well, I do know a rhino will charge your ass, so that's already pretty cool. But, you know, the Blood Ninja reference.
Short, pale Southern women are best, though, Lenny. What do you think?
Oh, no, okay. So now you're just asking Bundy. Bundy's not allowed to ask questions.
No. Bundy's questions will be ignored.
I've asked Bundy a lot of questions, and he's just...
We still want our... I still want my sonnet, Bundy.
Yeah, Bundy owes more...
Okay. So, we have a game now. Gas, oven, or rape? Hitler, Putin, and Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. I would probably... It's difficult, actually, because I don't want to rape any of those guys, but... You oven Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, you gas Hitler, and you rape Putin. That's what I would do.
Putin would probably be the best way.
Yeah. The best waifu, Allah or Aisha? Definitely Aisha. Aisha is a better waifu.
Yeah, I mean, Allah, who wants him as a wife? It'd be awful.
Yeah, I mean, Aisha is really young and fertile. So.
4-ball or 8-ball. 8-ball.
Yeah, 8-ball is better.
8-ball.
Yeah. Always rape the Muslim. No, I'm not gonna rape Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. I'm gonna fucking oven.
I get sand on my dick.
If it's not gay, if it's just a tip, man. Okay. That's what the chat is saying. That's not what I'm saying.
No. You gotta say no homo first. It's real easy. Just do it.
Okay, so more questions. We need more until Mr. Guinness comes back and gives us a subject we can talk about, because we're incompetent. Okay, so chat. Come on. Give us something. Favorite civilization prior to Common Era? Okay, so... no, it's not Common Era. It's Anno Domine, you fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, that guy's probably a fucking low-T atheist.
No, anyway. So favorite civilization before the year 0?
Romans.
Carthaginians.
Well, the Romans
fucking
were
Romans.
Well,
no,
I think the
Carthaginians because they had personal running water. in their fucking houses.
Ooh, what about the Minoans? Are you guys familiar with the Minoans? I know Pat is. Yeah, Pat knows.
Well, actually, what I
Rumored
would
to be the host of the Atlantean myth is the Minoans. Damn it.
Well, I mean, I would kind of agree that I think the Romans were pretty good, but they also had they were also after the years zero, obviously. But okay, so let's see. Next questions: Plato versus Aristotle.
Just had a conversation about this. Feather, behold.
No, first there was the question about engines. I don't know about strokes on engines, so I am not qualified.
2-stroke or 4-stroke? Best engine, 2-stroke or 4-stroke?
I like more strokes on everything, so more strokes.
Two-stroke is now 2-stroke is fast.
More strokes for the win. Yeah.
Okay, also, Bundy, it's nice that you have a new troll account out to ask me questions about short, pale Southern women, but I'm not going to answer them.
What is better, old, fertile, old, short, petite Australian grannies, or short, pale Southern women? Bundy!
Yeah, basically. Okay,
Give us your answer, Bundy.
I think most people here graduated high school. I could imagine.
We're not degenerates.
So that question is, well, I graduated high school. I think.
Yes, please leave me out of the shit talking, please.
Okay, so more questions, please. Okay, Plato versus Aristotle, because that question was not said. Well,
locked.
Yep. Yeah,
high school and college.
Undergrad degrees.
I'm doing a college degree, so I don't have.
I'm a bachelor in business administration.
Oh, nice.
Got an undergrad finance.
Okay. Come on, give us more questions. Do it. The Schieffelin plan or Eva Braun? Eva Braun is better. I mean, she killed herself for her husband. That's pretty crazy.
Eva Braun, yep.
Definitely. Yeah. She was a good waifu. Who knows how to build a bomb?
I have a short story about bombs.
What kind of a bomb?
I was looking into chemicals on how to build explosives on Google for a personal project, and then Google locked me out of chemicals in Google searches for about half an hour. So I don't know if the FBI or NSA got into my computer here in Brazil and checked me out because I was building bombs or whatever. So I technically know how, but only Molotov cocktails.
I also know how to
build.
build.
Can't for anything.
In high school, me and my friends used to make bombs. Nothing really big or anything. We never damaged anyone's property.
Yeah.
Throw them up in the woods.
Most of us never did. Okay.
Did almost kill myself once.
Blow your fingers off?
Well, yeah, there's a fucking push detonator that would send the electrical current through, but we didn't have the extension cable for it, so I stood behind this tree and pressed the button, and then 180 degrees on the other side of the tree, there's a shit ton of shrapnel in it.
Biodynamics, organic, or permaculture? I have no idea what type of question is.
When it comes to the bomb issue, I had to build a sort of bomb for a chemistry class, but I also know which chemicals to get if I wanted to make a bomb. But I have no reason to do it. No. And also, it's illegal to do that. So, who would you sell your water rights to, Nestle or Monsanto?
Definitely. Water rights? No. Okay.
Nestle, definitely.
The answer, trick question, you never sell your water rights.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, but if you had to, I would pick Nestle.
No, then you kill them all. You do not sell your water rights, ever.
Yeah, you don't, but you have to. The question says you would, so you have to. If you have to.
Then whichever one pays me more, and then I leave and I buy more water rights elsewhere with the money. There you go.
Yeah, that's a good.
I'm pretty sure Monsanto has a big amount of money backing them. No, don't worry though. It's not like they're doing experiments on pigs and shit. They're totally
I'm back. What the fuck are you talking about, bitches?
We were talking with the chat that were asking us questions because we were
like
not having
bombs.
general subject.
By the way, chat,
There were a
the
bunch
best
of
way
low-T
to make a bomb is to rent a rider truck and fill it up with fertilizer and park it somewhere in front of some building.
The Oklahoma City building, perhaps?
Oklahoma City.
Yeah, perhaps.
And don't worry about the cleanup, because off-duty FBI agents will find the axle many blocks away.
So, favorite feminists other than Crisima, Hoff Summers, or Paglia? I kind of like the honest ones that talk about punching people.
Christina Hoff Summer is the fucking cock
really?
that signed the deal that said that Donald Trump security address.
Yeah, I know.
She supported that fucking hoax. If she's not fucking base, mom, get over it.
Yeah,
if you support her, you don't support Trump. Get the fuck off. Go to vote Hillary Clinton.
So Paglia is okay.
Yeah, her support on that Lewandowski thing was actually pretty amazing.
Yeah,
why the fuck
Oh, it didn't happen. But it happened.
She just had to not touch that with a fucking 20-foot pole, and nothing would happen to her. But she did it. Now, the backlash was very small for what she did, but I'm very impressed. No one talked about it for a long time.
No, I mean, she literally like the letter was literally sort of a identity politics, like, oh, as women are underrepresented and we're disrespected, and she like signed that unironically. She was like, oh, this is totally what I believe. Anyway, no, like I said, I kind of like Dworkin because she talks about punching men in the face. It's kind of more honest than some of the others. So I kind of like the honest ones. Dworkin is fun. I kind of like the one that had the manifesto against stabbing men. Who was that again? I forgot. Anyway.
Okay.
Honorary Aryans.
No, first, would you sell a riverfront property to a farmer or a fisherman? A fisherman, definitely, because he would use it better than a farmer.
I'm assuming if it's on a riverfront, the soil's going to be sandy, so...
Yeah. Doxer or Stalker?
Soil is gross shade tobacco.
Stalker, definitely.
Well, okay, so the Japanese...
Well, I mean, so long as they're not 14-year-olds I'm doxing, I guess I'm okay with it.
Dog,
Dog,
I have to ask, how are you screencasting that at such a high frame rate?
XSplit?
Oh, did you pay for it or something?
Nope.
It
is. In the corner it says XSplit. Yeah, and you can XSplit. You can pay them money and they'll remove their watermark. But if you don't pay them, then you can do it. You just gotta keep. Oh, fuck you, Neith.
Which is this? Is this the virtual webcam feature? Or?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, see, when I tried to do it, it mirrored everything, and I couldn't figure out how to get it not to mirror it.
You know, I said fuck Neith, and then she immediately died.
Yeah.
So that works.
And nice assist. You're welcome.
So Guinness, if you want to, if you had an idea, you can bring something in as a subject because you tend to come up with subjects, or you can talk about something. But currently, we're just talking with this chat because we were just asking questions. There were some funny questions in there. Anyway.
They want you. Oh, they want you so bad.
I don't know. I guess the question on my mind. I mean, like I said, I recently made my first video, and so question that's been on my mind is how much, because I've come to the conclusion that there's pretty much only one thing that is consistent within all subjects, pretty much of discourse. It's that people are fucking stupid, and that people are just unable to avoid these dogmatic ways of thinking, idealistic ways of thinking, us versus them mentality, and I feel like. You know, as much as I hate the SJWs, I've seen more and more recently. Maybe I've just started to notice it that people on the other side have been just I wouldn't say as bad, but they've been in a lot of ways becoming what they always sought to fight against. And
they weren't. They didn't understand what they were fighting against in the first place, so they couldn't fight it. So it doesn't even matter.
Well, also, I mean, they've also started. I mean, look, this is also the thing. I don't necessarily believe there is such thing as an anti-SJW community because it's like basically what you have is you have a bunch of people who
that was kind of my argument too. Anyway, go ahead.
sorry, but I know, but they disagree with SJWs, right? But for example, I mean, some of them in there fully agree with like SJW, like no, but there's degrees of disagreement. There is also definitely different angles from which disagreement can come. And there's also at the same time also different political opinions. So I mean, like this anti-SJW community has been sort of regulating
I guess where I'm coming at it from is that I made the mistake of being because again these criticisms apply to myself, and I made the mistake of being idealistic in my view of the opposing side to the encroaching establishment of the SJW, socialism, left-wing, authoritarian, whatever you want to call it. So I guess I've just now sort of realized that there's nobody that's immune to this poison of that seems to be seeping throughout the West. There's nobody that.
Well, it's not new. No, wait a minute though. That's just how people are. I mean, they've always been this way.
Yeah.
Same as we always were, man.
Yeah,
I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at. There's been no hope.
Well, there's hope. It's just you got to understand we are what we are. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean. Look at how far we've come, Dennis.
Yeah, but look at how far we've fallen.
You're a guy living in Canada. You can get a frozen pizza whenever you want and communicate with some asshole on the other side of the planet, right? Yeah. Play your video games. And we've walked on the fucking surface of the moon, man.
Actually, it's not true. There's actually Stanley Kubrick. We all know that he filmed.
Okay, well,
anyway, I'm just
fine.
kidding.
Then Stanley Kubrick faked us walking on the moon. That was something that the fucking caveman couldn't figure out. I mean, it doesn't even matter.
I was kidding anyway.
Yeah, but it doesn't even matter.
Look, I agree because you can get over it. No. I mean, you accept that there are biases. You're going to have conflicts in groups, and you're going to have what you might call groupthink or whatever you want to call it. That's going to exist always. I mean, we were having this argument with someone else, and he was like saying that we should stop having conflicts in politics. Like, it's impossible. You're always going to have us versus them. That's never going away. So either you accept that it is there, and you perhaps look out for it and see if it might corrupt a certain it might perhaps corrupt someone's reasoning for some reason.
Well, you're going to have it, but just make sure that it doesn't act to the detriment of your society. I mean,
work for your society. Mentality is sometimes important to have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if, I don't know, you're in a war, kind of when you want an us versus them mentality, when you're in a pothole.
No, definitely, exactly. I mean, us versus them is not always like negative. It's just something that exists and is useful sometimes.
When you have integration, you can't have an us versus them type mentality. At least to effectively integrate.
Well, see, that's why I think I'm starting to agree with the globalists in that the nation state is a stupid idea, but that just means we go back to the city-state.
All right, we got a question from chat.
Hey, there's that.
Because it means I get to launch people over my city walls with a catapult.
Guys.
You and your catapult.
From chat, Islam or Marxism?
Islam.
Yeah, Islam.
Islam. Fucking Islam.
Well, what do you mean Marxism? Do you mean like the end project communism, or do you mean just like having a shit ton of
Islam has no self-propagation theories that make them last forever. So if you convert the population to Christianity,
but here's okay.
It makes it easier to go away.
I would actually sooner, if I had to live under one of the two societies, I would probably choose Marxism. But it's mostly because Marxists are such fucking fail-boats.
Yeah, they fail all the time.
That when they ultimately failed, I would get to drop them from helicopters. And I'm look forward to the day when I get to drop all the Marxists from helicopters.
No. I mean, I actually look if you. I mean, you like Islam. No, I would actually also take Marxism simply because they don't really last that long.
Yeah, but here's the other thing I would say as a corollary to that is I think Islam is only a problem because of Marxism.
Mm-hmm.
Absent the basically the Marxists pushing for multiculturalism, and they're the ones pushing it. They want to do it to save their fucking stupid welfare state. And absent them doing that, you'd be fine. So it's I would rather live in a Marxist society than an Islamic society, but I wouldn't have to choose if the Marxists weren't around. Because look at Islam, say 100 years ago. Was it a problem? Obviously not.
No.
And can any Islamic state stand up against the West on the field of battle? The answer is no. They get fucking annihilated. Their best defense in war is our unwillingness to kill them. I mean, that's fucking pathetic. Like a kitten could claim the same thing. It's like, well, I could kill you, I just don't want to.
You're right, but I mean, no, it's absolutely true. I mean, the basically what has happened is that Marxism kind of acts like AIDS. It sort of takes away the immune system. So Islam in a normal, if we were non-paused, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. If we didn't have med-resistant Marxism.
Yeah, if you didn't have AIDS in the form of Marxism, then we probably would have defensive. We'd already have removed the Muslims, basically.
Yeah, let me go.
So anyway, so let's see. Well, when it actually comes to the question you were talking about, Dennis, I mean, it's been clear. I mean, there's going to be conflicts in the anti-SJW quote-unquote community, because I don't believe it's a community at all.
Let me clarify a little bit. It's not conflicts, because I mean, I think conflicts are a good thing. I think that it spurs intellectual discussion, and it can. And what I have a problem with is it seems like the people. I've seen more and more people who originally claimed to be all against the tenets the SJWs promote of, like, you know, safe spaces and circle jerks and frickin', you know,
people lie.
It seems like people lie, exactly. They're doing it on the other side. I've seen
well,
more people
there isn't.
do it on the other side.
Also, can you invite an SJW to have a conversation with? Because if not,
we've tried.
That's true.
The only option you have is a circle jerk.
Yeah, and I like, again, I'm not saying it's as bad as the SJWs. I'm saying the tendency is there.
Well, also, and we've seen this recently. I mean, there's a lot of people who are SJWs. They're just mad that SJWs are removing white and dick from the progressive stack. And if they just had more white dick in the progressive stack, then it would be perfect.
No, that's literally what it is, though, because
it's like, no, you're not actually against progressivism. You just want to be included in the progressive stack.
I mean, there are people who believe, like, they peddle this nonsense that, like, the SJWs are like, oh, you know, 20 years ago they were totally fine, and now they've just sprung out of nowhere. It's like, no, those people have existed for a long time. I mean, if I go back to the age of, I don't know, fucking... the bareback monkeys that we perhaps were, then probably would have been a fucking SJW there.
Well, maybe.
Sure.
No, but what I'm saying is,
well,
like,
define what an SJW is, then.
Yeah, exactly. I would say Marxist.
I'm not throwing this out to be a fucking autistic cunt here, but like define your fucking terms.
I would say it's Marxism. I would say it's a Marxist. An SJW is a Marxist. So I just call them Marxists, but then you could say.
Well, they're cultural Marxists, because I mean, like, there are a lot of there are some. It's interesting when you talk to a Marxist who's, like, willing to at least fucking admit it, because they tend to not have a lot of the SJW tropes. It's the ones that are kind of in the closet that pull this shit.
Well,
like, no, I'm not a Marxist. It's like, well, yeah, but you are fucking quacking, sir. So I'm gonna have to say you are perhaps a
yeah,
duck.
sure, but I mean yeah. Sure, it's cultural Marxism, whatever, but it's like I could partly agree that the word SJW has become slightly sort of vague, simply because there's never a really good definition. But anyway, like, I mean, it's also, I think it also has to do with the like YouTube itself, perhaps, because there's a lot of people in the anti-SJW sphere, you might say, also just want to have, like,
my subs,
basically.
Yeah, my YouTube gold.
Basically, yeah. So that can also create, like, these biases or whatever, or just like these what you might object to as like easy rhetoric about us versus them, even though I think in the case when it comes to Marxists, it's quite applicable there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just saying that as far as there's no real distinction. I mean, you have the SJWs who, the people on this side might have some better ideas.
Well, okay,
but they aren't immune
another,
from the thing.
Okay, all right. So there's no definition in your thing with what an SJW is, and there's no definition of what our side is. And if you don't understand what you are, and you don't understand what your opposition is, then you can't be surprised when something doesn't line up with something because you haven't defined anything.
All right. Well, I would define an SJW as the people who advocate for things like safe spaces, trigger warnings, radical third wave feminists.
Okay, but what are things like that? I mean, like, is it literally those words, or what is the controlling element of that? Is it like censorship? What is it?
Yeah, censorship, intolerance to other ideas, and authoritarian sort of desire to have a domination of the political discourse.
Well, I mean, everybody wants to dominate. That's not new.
Okay, let me ask you guys something. Is it intolerance towards other ideas if we discuss failed theories? Are we being intolerant, or are we just being rational?
Well, I would say when it comes to that, I would say it's more or less not necessarily intolerance because theory has failed, but like this is a thing because there are some people who would argue that Will, and perhaps you could just include a lot of people here, are intolerant towards Marxism. And that's kind of true. Like, I don't want to have Marxism in my society.
I'll cop to it.
Why would you want to be tolerant towards an authoritarian?
Well, I mean, it's the morality of Marxism, in my opinion, is antithetical to my civilization in much the way that a lot of people would say that, say, Islam is incompatible. I believe in a meritocracy, and that people should be judged on their ability to contribute to society and all that kind of stuff. And Marxism, just insists that we're all the same, even though we're obviously not. I mean, some people are talented and some people aren't. Some people, so it's, I can't share a society with them. They're going to fuck it up.
Question.
Does free speech? Sorry, you can read it.
Oh, does free speech protect murderous death cults?
Is it advocate for violence? No.
Well, that's a good question. So, and this is one of the things that it becomes a problem with, say, freedom of religion, right? Because when they said that, they weren't referring to, I don't know, the Thuggee cult from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, frickin' Kali Ma, is not what the founders were thinking of when they thought freedom of it. They were like, well, we should be tolerant of the Quakers. I mean, it was like a completely different context, and so. I'm very reticent to change a lot of these moral principles, but at the same time, they can't. So they didn't come down like from the voice of God or something. So there's doubtless going to be some errors in there, some things that need to get changed, and I think Islam is making it very clear that freedom of religion, as it's understood, needs to be tweaked a bit because
my sort of original point, and like I guess I should have clarified this. Is more of the mistake that I made of, and you guys have probably heard me say this before, of sort of throwing all my chips in with one group and expecting them to be better and to be the, not necessarily moral, but the intellectual crusaders. And I've just come to the realization that there is no such group, there is no such ideal that I'll ever find.
Well, that's wrong. Then you had put wrong expectations in front of yourself, I suppose.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But
yeah.
I mean,
we're the good people.
Look,
yeah, I've given up on that. I don't think.
Well, I mean, like moral superiority, I would not try to claim or something, but I don't know.
I mean,
in
you might as well.
Situations, I would certainly claim moral superiority.
Well, you're always going to have that, but.
The question is, and this gets back to the international law thing, right? It's like, okay, let's say you are morally superior in your opinion. So what? What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And if the answer is nothing, then it's like, well, okay, I'm just going to sit here with the child's, broken body on my dick and laugh at you because apparently that it just doesn't mean anything.
Well, okay. Are you then arguing for intervention in all cases?
Intervention when my morality demands it, obviously. I mean...
So, like...
Okay, all right. Let's put it this way. Let's say there's a guy who is just fucking the shit out of some little kids. Okay? Just the worst.
Are we talking inside your territory or elsewhere in the world?
Within your territory, within your power.
Then I understand.
I mean, if it's beyond your power, then there's nothing you can do. I mean, if they're like on another planet, then yeah, I can't do anything.
Nós estamos perdendo, mãe. Não tem ninguém roubando. Nós estamos perdendo.
The Portuguese has begun.
Não sei, não tirei. Can
you throw a Hue in there, please? Okay.
Não é possível.
It could happen.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I've just overall I've given up on idealism.
Well, no. Look. Okay. Don't go. Okay. Don't expect. Right. Don't
Fuck.
expect.
Sorry, I muted my microphone.
No, it's no problem. Okay. So don't expect when you go to some group or something, right, to be like not show cases of in-group preference, you might call, because that's something you're kind of talking about. You're sort of talking about the fact that
the buzzword of in-group preference.
Well, yeah. Sorry for using the buzzword of in-group preference.
No, I'm just fucking with you, Lenny.
My dear Californian, but it does exist apparently. But I mean, look, it's just you're gonna look. It makes look if you're gonna ally yourself with a group. Just I mean, there's no if you want to do it. I mean, I think at the end everyone kind of does, even if it's a group of one person.
Oh, I'm sorry. I need to interrupt. Gene Wilder just died. Can we have a moment of silence?
Wait, who the hell is Gene Wilder?
Fuck you, Lenny.
No, I'm kidding. Get fucked.
Aww.
Get fucked. I was kidding.
Everybody, moment of silence. 10 seconds.
I'm not gonna have a moment of silence for someone
Shut
who
up.
died.
Shut up, faggot.
I'm not gonna have a moment of
silence.
No. Okay.
No, not happening.
Moment of silence is currently over.
No, I'm not doing a moment of silence unless you call it a moment of prayer.
Well, also,
Exactly.
also, is that the best commemoration of an actor? What is your favorite quote from Gene Wilder, or your favorite line that he ever did? I enjoyed him. I think the most in
Young Frankenstein.
Young Frankenstein.
He was hilarious.
Young
there.
Frankenstein.
He
He was also amazing in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Sure, but I mean, Young Frankenstein. The guy made the movie, basically. But
You pronounce it
Dennis, can you do me a
correctly,
favor? Can you look?
Frankenstein.
Okay, actually, I'm going to do this. I'm going to piss my team off, but I don't care. They're all scrubs.
What?
All right. Let's see here.
You're a douche,
Scrubs
man.
all.
I
know.
But no, I mean, we're gonna have a moment of silence for Gene Wilder, even though he's a good actor. But it doesn't matter. We don't do moment of silences.
We shall have a moment of shitposting.
Well, we're gonna have a moment of summoning demons, apparently.
There we go. Everybody summon their favorite demon in memory of Gene Wilder.
Okay, here we go. There's no earthly way of knowing which direction they are going. There's no knowing where they're rowing.
I think
The river's flowing.
The
Is it
gondola.
raining? Is it snowing? Is a hurricane blowing? Not a speck of light is showing, so the danger must be growing. Are the fires of hell glowing? Is the grisly reaper mowing? Yes, the danger must be growing. Because the rowers keep on rowing. And they're certainly not slowing or showing any sign that they are slowing. So there you go. There you go. So Gene, that's the best I got for you, Gene. So sorry, not an actor.
Don't forget what happened to the man who suddenly got everything he always wanted.
Oh,
he lived happily ever after.
I kind of agree with the chat. Whenever
Okay, so what did the chat say, Lenny? Sorry.
The chat is saying that whenever his moment of silence comes up, you shout "Gas the Kike Space War" now. Kind of agree with that. That's kind of what you have to do. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull's throne. I agree.
No, but that does suck. Gene Wilder was awesome.
No, but I knew who Gene Wilder was, but I know I was gonna say like, oh, who the hell is he? You're gonna be like, what? That's what I tend to do when someone famous dies, and then everyone gets really upset and butthurt.
Sad.
All right,
oh,
guys.
Lenny, don't you know who ... was? Oh my God, you're
but
so
it's Gene,
uncultured.
it's Gene Wilder.
Wilder, man.
No, well, I know, but I know who fucking Gene Wilder is. I'm just, whatever.
All right, let's see. We have been going for more than. All right, I think we're gonna close it up in about 10, 15 because I actually have some things I got to do.
That's
so.
fine. That's fine, Canadian.
So, any closing topic suggestions?
We could talk about.
Chat. Any closing topic suggestions? Let's see. Give it a second.
I mean, I was gonna. I mean, I could tell you guys about something I saw, but I'd probably do it off air because it's fucking hilarious.
Let's just take questions from chat for the next.
Okay, chat, give us questions again for the last.
I'm
10
fucking
minutes.
shocked there's anyone in chat.
No, there are 20 people watching.
You people fucking shock me.
20 people watching this random
What
shit.
about the awe? Because you know it's not any good without the awe.
Literally.
Literally.
Vertical future. What does that even mean as a question?
Well, I do literally say that.
Yes.
Literally.
Roses are red, violets are blue. Pornhub is down. Your Facebook profile will do.
Wow, Facebook. Okay, here we go. Russia or China? Who are we gonna nuke first? China, obviously. What the fuck? Why would we nuke
Yeah, that's not even a question. Come
Well,
on,
why don't
China.
you nuke Russia?
Yeah,
It's like,
and
no,
besides,
China-
we already got that from the prophetic vision, which is Fallout, and we know that
we already
nuke the
know that
Chinese.
China gets fucking.
Yeah, we didn't nuke the
no,
Russians.
No, the solution to China is you make a big, beautiful robot, you talk about Chinese communist invaders, and you put him in China, and then he starts killing everyone. And you call him Liberty Prime, perhaps. It's a nice name.
Hello there.
Oh, holy shit! Who are you?
Oh my God!
I'm totally just no one.
Well, we.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's
that
a faceless guy.
So you're in
It's
good
fucking faceless asshole out of here.
It's Slender Man.
Oh, it's that one loser on YouTube. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slender Man. He came to scare us, guys.
Totally.
Okay.
I just came to say goodnight.
Oh, you know.
Oh, okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, and may a
Good
flight of
night.
angels sing thee to thy rest.
Sure.
Any questions for us?
About
Random person who
BMW
we
or
certainly don't know.
No. Edgy just sent me this link, so I didn't see it till now, so I just pressed it, and here I am. So, hi, Edgy.
Okay.
I think Edgy's AFK.
Hello,
I guess
Edgy.
I guess he's just.
How you doing,
not
Edgy?
here. Edgy, come on.
All right, let's see. BMW or Audi, guys?
Fuck you. That's retarded. What are you talking about, BMW and Audi?
That's the chat.
That's the chat, yeah.
Slender Man or Dr. Slayman? I don't know what that
I don't know.
question even
Who would win in a
means.
fight, Dr. Slayman here or Layman?
Who is
Fight to
that?
the death.
I think Dr. Layman would bring out the sociology facts.
Yeah. You don't know
Sociology,
Layman? Random
real
person?
science or fake science?
That's the question.
Fake.
People are asking you to read a bedtime story on Doomed.
No, not gonna happen.
Hey, they tried. They had to try.
They tried, exactly.
Yeah.
No, what you need to do is like go, oh, okay, and then you read like the fucking dirtiest Grimm's Brothers tale.
Right. No.
And you
Just
do it
go
like
for,
you get like you get
could you just
noticeably
give me some
aroused
porn?
as the blood starts to flow.
Just give me some
and then you close
porn.
it with "Good night, Susie."
Oh, here we go. Oh, this is an interesting question. Fuck, marry, kill. Edgy, Bundy, Lenny.
You gotta marry Lenny because he'd be a good wife.
I'm gonna fuck Bundy.
He'd be very.
Yeah, fuck Bundy, marry Lenny. I don't want to kill Edgy.
No,
though.
you gotta kill. Come on, you gotta kill him.
Kill Bundy.
Kill Bundy. All right, I'll kill Bundy. I'll marry Lenny, and I guess I'll fuck Edgy. Sorry.
Kill
Sorry, Edgy.
all three. That's the only legit.
Well, actually, I'm wondering, can I answer this question? So can I marry myself? That's what I'm wondering. I don't know how that
No.
works. Can I
If you
fuck
kill
myself?
yourself, you can definitely kill yourself.
Can I fuck myself?
Lenny would be an amazing wife.
I will.
He would be your barefoot fucking housewife. Like
Well,
he would just be
I will
there.
admit I'm pretty good at making sandwiches. I'll give you.
Yeah,
that.
he would make the
guys.
sandwiches. See,
The
Sandwich
chat
God.
is crying, guys. We made the chat cry.
why?
I don't know, but the chat is crying.
Okay, so is there?
Will they say why?
I don't think you know what's going on here anymore.
We've devolved into absolute degeneracy, so I think we're gonna close it off.
Aw.
Here we'll go. We'll give another 5 more minutes of questions.
They can't watch me kill more people with Ymir.
So there's a guy called Bundy Trollbeer who says, "I want more to answer this question."
What?
Okay.
Answer what?
The question of fuck, marry, kill.
Okay, more. You gotta answer fuck, marry, kill. Edgy, Bundy, Lenny. What are you gonna do to Bundy? Think hard.
I mean, this is pre-Sonnet Bundy. Yeah.
See, the option that I would actually choose from for Bundy is not in the options. So you know.
Fine. We'll include Zyklon B and Casper.
No, pegging.
Well, does anyone see my chat? My thing here, is the screen share still working?
Yeah.
Well, it's like part of your screen is on there.
Really, not all of it?
No, it's just like the top part.
Only
It's
the
pretty low
top
resolution.
left corner, darling.
Oh, sad.
So okay. So we will rephrase fuck to whatever you want to do. It's pegging, I suppose.
Then yes, it would be Peg, Bundy. I guess if you want to do that.
We wouldn't.
Okay. All right. So here, this is the question. This is a very serious question. But is this body positivity creeping into my fucking game?
Yes.
Because she's a little thick. I want to show you the other ladies here. So this is Amarasu, right? So this is sort of an athletic chick. See, look at her. Significantly less body positive. Here's Aphrodite, who is extremely unpositive. Look at this.
Oh no, she's definitely.
I don't know if the boob physics work.
Totally body positive. Totally.
I mean,
totally.
The birthing hips.
I would pay to look like her. Absolutely.
Here is, and none
men
of them
will
are
pay
as
to
thick.
look at her.
And see, so it's a win-win because I just get the money right back.
The newest god, she's a little thick. I'm just saying, she's a little heavy.
Yeah.
She's not Bacchus heavy. This guy is the most body positive in the game.
Oh, absolutely.
What the fuck?
Yeah, this is Bacchus.
All right, guys.
Elvis.
So last question
You
of the
actually
night.
have Elvis. That's awesome.
Last question of the night, guys. Fuck, marry, kill. Hitler, Goebbels, and Eva Braun.
Well, it's obvious. You marry Goebbels, you fuck Eva, and you kill Hitler.
That's the American way.
It's obvious. Look, Goebbels is really he's a good waifu, very good waifu. Eva is not really good waifu because she kills herself, so you don't really want to have that. She's just fuck her. And Hitler, you just make sure the syphilis doesn't eat his brain, so you kill him.
All right, guys.
That's what you do.
Everybody say goodnight.
Well, I'm
Say
not the only one
goodnight.
response to this question. Why am I the only one?
You gave us the definitive answer, man. Come on. What else can we say? All right, everybody say goodnight. Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Good night.
Bye.
Niggers.